Yes, it is AC after curfew. It's the 21st day of October 2021, first day after curfew. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. So there was so much excitement about curfew has been lifted. So then what happened? Okay, good morning, Ndu.
You see? You know, my father used to say, it's only goat that just stands up from the shed and leaves like that.
Yeah.
Only goat. And I know you're not a goat, so... greeting people first now.
Sitting,
Yes?
now that we've been called goats.
I specifically said you're not. Okay, good morning, Eric. How are you?
How are you, goat?
Well, fellow goat, I am actually very well. Yes.
Oh, God.
Okay.
You know, the reference isn't lost on us. No, not at all. Here we are being called names very early in the morning. Or should you say bright and early?
Yeah.
It's not really bright, but it's early.
Sawa too.
It's all right. We don't take it as an insult.
We take it in stride.
Yes, it's a positive reference point.
Do you see how rumors are spread? And wars have actually...
We will ruminate on that.
Good. Wars have actually been fought on falsehoods.
Really? Like which ones?
I'm not going to get into it now, but just know that they have been... Good morning. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Very good. City, how are you?
I am well, thank you.
Super duper.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. We have several conversations to have today. A lot has happened. The president addressed the country from Kirinyaga yesterday during Mashujaa Day. Gave a raft of measures, one of them lifting curfew and then saying, pesa, 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 money here, money there, money all over. We'll be looking at that when you're taking a look at the newspaper headlines. Plus, what else is expected to happen now that we have curfew has been lifted and still tracking what's happening to us in the country. So we will have that conversation in the coming hours, as we also have a conversation with a judge of the High Court, and this is Justice Professor Joel Ngugi, who will be joining us at 8 a.m. We talked about alternative justice systems and what Chief Justice Martha Koome is doing now, implementing alternative justice systems, bid to increase access to justice for all Kenyans. So Justice Professor Joel Ngugi is actually the chairperson of the implementation group team that is rolling out this alternative justice system and setting up of courts. They opened a new one in Kajiado on Tuesday. So he'll be here. He'll be telling us, so what's the plan and how are Kenyans to benefit from this? We'll also have another conversation on what's happening in the country with regards to everything else. So keep it right here for that and more. Let's start with COVID-19. Before we start doing our own vaccines, did we hit the target?
5 million is what we were being told yesterday.
We got 5 million.
Well, it's what we're being told yesterday. But we're going to look at what it is from the Ministry of Health official reporting numbers. Okay?
Yeah.
4.6 million, 4,674,897 vaccinations so far. So we did not hit the target, is a simple answer to your question.
Okay.
Okay? Whatever actually is happening right now also is that 117 new cases have been reported of COVID from a sample size of 6,004. This puts the positivity rate currently at 2.0 on the nose, which is trying to keep things under 5% until you can whittle down to 0. So the big question is, all right, on the 58th Mashujaa, were you able to get to 5.8? No. Just under 5 million people in the country so far have been vaccinated. It's about a tenth of the population that we're looking at right now. And of course, so we didn't get there. Plans in place to make sure that we get to that 10 million by December. All indications pointing to the fact that it's possible to have that done.
Okay. Okay. So the indications are that we could have that done.
No, there are thoughts that we could have that done. But going by this, is it giving you hope?
So what was our closing
10 million
number
people?
yesterday?
4.6 million. 4,674,597.
1.2 million short of target.
Yes. 1.2 million short of target. Indeed.
Wow.
It will take another 10 days from what we're doing currently to be able to have that done.
Wow.
Because we're doing just shy of 100,000 vaccinations on a daily basis.
Okay. The conversation will change. No. What we meant is by the end of October, we'll be at 5.8. And that's how it shall work. So by the end of October, forget about everything else that you're hearing. Those are lies.
Really?
No, those are lies. Forget about it. Okay. And then globally, we are still doing well in terms of vaccinating the world and, trying to maintain COVID at bay in terms of infecting people, right? All right. So we are live streaming the show on SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And we are also on www.spicefm.co.ke. Are you online? Yes, many of you are online. Say hello. We'll be saying hello to you shortly. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. It's 6:15.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
And now we're in a society where men have become very lazy. They have made people's daughters become mamafuas. You know mamafua?
Yes.
That you come to a man's house, maybe you went out or you've come for a weekend. You find all his shirts in his laundry basket.
Yeah.
He was waiting for you to
come and
are
clean
you
them.
his wife? Including his inner garments.
Right, yeah.
Ladies, stop doing that.
Let me
Those
tell
are
you.
wifely duties, and even some wives don't
That's
do them.
literally what I was about to say. I was wondering, there's even some wives who refuse to do that.
The only way to live your best life is to create a balance between work, love, and play. The Adults in the Room is the only show on radio dedicated to educating Kenyans on how they can stay winning in life and in love. Text the word adult to 22840 to get the latest clips from Adults in the Room directly to your mobile phone. SMS adults to 22840.
Spice FM.
It's getting hot in here.
Oh, everybody steals. It's better a thief who brings something small back. And I say to myself, there's no better thief. A thief is a thief, period.
All those bribes, how much they are getting per year, how much inconvenience they are causing. As much as you call it a small case, it's worth it to be convicted.
The truth is, we are a tribal nation. Because if we were not tribal, and I want to go back to this, you cannot continue walking around with a mug which is clean outside and it's rotten inside.
We have become a fuliza country. We have mortgaged our country because of debt.
You've got one chef working and the assistant chef wakati anatakana koroge unga nini hayuko.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to
It's 15 degrees
Spice
and cloudy in
FM.
Nairobi, highs of 24 and lows of 14 today. 14 degrees and partly cloudy in Nakuru, highs of 25. 22 will be the high in Nyeri, where it's raining at 15, coming down to lows of 14. In Eldoret, clear conditions at 13, at least for now. Highs of 24, come back down to lows of 13 today. It's raining in parts of Mombasa at 24. We'll see highs of 30, and in Malindi this morning, sunny conditions will be the start of the morning at 25, highs of 30 today. Kisumu is clear at 19, highs of 28 and lows of 19. While in Kakamega, it's clear at 16 with highs of 29. We'll see lows of 15. Out in Kampala, rain at 18, highs of 26 today. Dar es Salaam is mostly sunny, at least for now, at 22, highs of 31 and lows of 22. Clear conditions in Johannesburg at 12, highs of 24. And in Lagos, it's cloudy at 26. The rain is beckoning, highs of 30 and lows of 24. Partly cloudy conditions at 24 in Kinshasa. We'll see highs of 31 and lows of 23. Beijing is sunny at 16, highs of 19 and lows of 4, while in Paris, cloudy conditions at 13, highs of 15 and lows of 4. London is clear at 10, highs of 12, lows of 7. And New York, still Wednesday night, mostly clear conditions at 20. Coming into Thursday, we'll see highs of 25 and lows of 14.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, everything nice. SpiceFM.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
It's 19 minutes after 6. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. We thank you very much for joining us from wherever you are tuned in. For example, Benapudo says, good morning, Spice. From Ugunja is tuned. Alex is in Nyeri.
Alex is in Nyeri, says good morning. Alex Mbogo says good morning. Nams Wailisha says good morning, tuned in from Mogadishu in Somalia. Odero Jr. says good morning, happy new year from the Great Wall of Kino. Do you see what you've done now?
Yes, it's a new year.
Okay. You should be a politician. Kim Tai says good morning. He's tuned in from Kitale this morning. And Laban Kaptel is tuned in as well. Good morning. Listening from Nanyuki, he says, finally, the president did it. Now the economy can grow a bit. Enjoying the Situation Room always. Well, Asante Sana. Bedasti tuned in from Macha. Shanzu. I've always liked the name of that. That's where Stanley is this morning. He says he's looking forward to another public holiday. Hey, brother, he just got off one. Chris is tuned in as well and says good morning. And from Gitari Village, Bishogoro Omakaya is tuned in as well.
All right. City Muga has been doing press-ups, sit-ups, and all.
And star jumps.
Practicing for today's proverb.
It's a Digo proverb.
All right.
Digo.
Yes, Digo. Okay. For those who do not know, one of them is in the Kenda communities. South Coast. Okay. Zogolo kiuka sio dawa ya kucha.
Zogolo kiuka.
I know I've desecrated it completely. But someone who speaks the language, I'm sure, chime in and help me. Zogolo kiuka sio dawa ya kucha.
What does it mean?
The cock crowing doesn't cause the break of dawn.
Zogolo kiuka sio dawa ya kuka.
Kucha.
Ya kucha.
Kumekucha.
So jogoo akiwika hajamaanishi kumekucha.
Sio mwanzilishi.
Sio mwanzilishi wa kucha.
Yes.
Haya. A cock crowing
doesn't cause the break of dawn.
Does not cause the break of dawn.
Yes.
It heralds it.
It does, but
it doesn't cause it.
It's not the cause.
No.
Okay. It's a good one. Let's look at the newspapers. Do you have your Standard e-paper with you? Have you been able to subscribe? 20 shillings daily for the Standard e-paper. You get access to the entire Standard newspaper on your digital devices. The physical paper is 60 bob. The online paper is 20 bob. On a daily basis, you get access to the entire paper, standardmedia.co.ke, all the content, premium content. You also get access to free Sudoku, get access to free crossword puzzles, and also access to the Standard archives at least for 10 days for free. So, in the headlines today, the Standard says, Uhuru's delicate balance. The president lifts curfew to aid economic recovery and announces a raft of measures to reduce impact of COVID-19 in a delicate balance between keeping Kenyans safe and a return to normalcy. So he announced some 13 interventions yesterday. One in the subsector of tea. He says 1 billion shillings will be set aside to support fertilizer subsidy for tea farmers. A sugar subsector, 1.5 billion shillings to be released to be allocated by the Treasury for factory maintenance and payment of farmers' arrears. Coffee subsector, 1 billion shillings for targeted interventions in the coffee subsector. In the livestock sector, 1.5 billion shillings to communities affected by drought. A framework to facilitate reduction of cost of animal and chicken feeds to be implemented. Now let's come to health. 3.2 billion shillings to construct a medical facilities, including 50 new level 3 hospitals countrywide. 10 billion shillings for the third phase of Kazi Mtaani under the National Sanitization Program. This is basically cash transfer. Banking sector, upward revision of the cash transactions reporting threshold from 1 million shillings to applicable to withdraw and deposit. Digital financial services, the Treasury to engage digital payment providers to expand their services. We are going to now start producing our own vaccine. In fact, our company has been established that is going to start manufacturing this campaign. These vaccines. It should be online by February next year. Energy and petroleum. we are on course to seeing the reduction on the cost of electricity prices by 30% by December. And now, you're talking about at children are now crossing over into junior primary. So what's going to happen? We are going to do how many new classrooms? 100,000
At a
classrooms.
cost of
How many?
8 billion shillings.
100,000 classrooms around the country to
100,000.
ease the congestion that 100% transition and the change of the curriculum has invited.
Okay.
If you listen to all those things, the president has said many things. No, it's actually 10,000 classes, not 100,000
10,000
classes.
classrooms.
10,000 classrooms ahead of the double intake. Okay? All those interventions, money here, money there, money the other places. How many do you have faith that are going to be implemented?
In what period of time?
Well, see, it's within this financial year. So you're talking about 1 billion shillings now. We're talking about 1.5 billion shillings going to sugar now. 1 billion shillings going to coffee now. 1.5 billion shillings going to livestock now. 8 billion shillings going to construct new classrooms. And in fact, this money is going straight to local carpenters. Okay? Nothing at here about
In the same way it went to the local carpenters who are making
the last
those
time.
desks.
Yes.
Okay. How did that story end, really?
Who knows?
You know, sometimes I find it almost distasteful that one has to pour cold water on some of these promises.
Yeah.
But what alternative does one have? I mean, these promises, in and of themselves, if we were to look at them and talk about them being fulfilled, what change would they actually bring?
If 10,000 more classes were built in the
if
country, for
if
example.
all these were fulfilled,
Ah,
big changes.
Huge, CT. Huge. What are we talking about?
Yes, let's dream a little bit. What would
Fertilizer subsidy, for example, for the tea sector. All right, that means that tea farmers can access cheaper fertilizer. It means that the cost of input is lower. It means that the gains are higher. Coffee subsector as well. If you look at the sugar subsector, all those factories in the sugar belt that have not been maintained and serviced for a long time, so they're just basically not even functioning. There are many sugarcane farmers who have not been paid, so they are owed in arrears. Release this money, go and pay the pending payments. Release this money, take to whatever, Nzoia Sugar Factory, service the machines. It would make a big difference if it was implemented.
Sugarcane farmers are not paid even when factories are working.
Now just imagine if they actually received the money this time. Don't be
I
something.
can imagine, and I don't see change. That's the whole point.
You don't see change in what?
No, I'm talking about the sugar sector.
You-
Even when factories are working,
They don't service.
no, people don't get paid. Their payments are delayed. Private sugar factories will pay you.
But see, this is the thing now. Cognizant of the fact that farmers have not been paid
Cognizant of the fact.
and they are owed. So this money is basically going to pay those arrears. Number one.
Cognizant of the fact.
And then service the machines.
All right, Eric, cognizant of the fact that this same government has, through Treasury, released money to counties on many occasions to pay vendors. Cognizant of that fact. We don't hear the stories of vendors not being paid, but was that story concluded happily? No. Are vendors still owed? Yes. Was money released? We think so.
But you see, CT, your question then is that I'm answering the question you asked. What if it actually happened?
I agree.
If it happened, there'd be big changes.
They would be.
Do I think these things are going to happen? I personally, myself, me.
You yourself and yourself.
I don't see any of these things happening. I don't. Where is the money, first of all? And it's campaign season, okay? I can see 8 billion shillings being chalked down somewhere in the National Treasury and said that this money has gone to construct new classrooms. I can see that happening.
Yes.
Will the classrooms actually be built? I don't see that
Different
happening.
story.
This is campaign financing. It could end up in campaign financing. 8 billion shillings. 10 billion shillings kazi mtaani. This is 10 billion shillings that's just being paid to youth. At you came and you cleaned, You attended a public rally. This, 10 billion shillings. campaign financing. It's finding its way in the wrong place. That is my own personal
How
thinking.
do
I am
we
seeing
ensure that this money actually does what it's supposed to do?
people just doing their job. But people being honest.
Yes.
By first of all, starting with being honest and saying, okay, so we need money for campaigns, so this is how we're going to do it. Let's just be clear about it and say, okay, so the money shall come, yes, but this is how we're going to distribute it. At least 80% shall go into the actual thing, and then 20% we shall divert to finance campaigns. This.
You know, essentially you've taken us to the realm of miracles where there'll be a complete change of heart and a complete change of morality among the people who actually make decisions and then implement them. Because it's not as though sometimes the money isn't there or isn't available. It's what happens. You see this? This is the painful thing. There are people sitting somewhere waiting to divert this money. And there's no pretense about it. And the budget is created with that in mind.
Yep.
Isn't it?
Yes,
That's
it
what you're
is.
saying. It's pretty sad that this entire thing being done, and you cannot run away from the fact of the possibility.
No.
People are just looking at this thing like hyenas waiting for this thing to come
It's not a possibility. It's a reality.
So that's it. Even as this were announced, it would be that there would be triumph amongst Kenyans that, okay, look, they're saying that if these things were actually implemented, what could be done? What kind of positive steps in terms of development then would you be able to take? But then now you face the reality and said that, well, you know, very little of it would actually trickle down to where it's supposed to be. Very little of it, because corruption has already been budgeted for here.
And others are just promises. For example, this one, 1.5 billion to communities affected by drought. This is what the government has been talking about forever. All right.
Forever.
This
It's gone down now. So was it not 2 billion?
It was 2 billion initially.
No, it's 1.5.
Now it's 1.5 billion shillings.
They've reduced it.
And that is being considered as an intervention to the livestock sector. It's not. This is drought intervention. This is it's intervention to feed the people, not to support the livestock sector. Those two are not the same.
Not the same.
Not the same. 6:30 anyway. Let's take this break anyway. Take a look at the traffic anyway, and then we'll look at other newspaper headlines. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It's a Situation Room.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
The opportunities are here. Project X, the biggest youth empowerment project in Africa for young creatives, is here. Are you a model, a fashion designer, or a performing artist? Then this is the opportunity you have been waiting for. Register now for the opportunity of a lifetime by following at Opportunities Are Here on Instagram and The Opportunities Are Here on Facebook for more information and the registration link. Online selections begin on the 12th of October and registration closes on the 22nd of October. The Opportunities Are Here is a project by the Ethical Fashion Initiative in partnership with the European Union. Project X is co-produced by KTN Home and Vibes Radio.
You know, when you see someone being jailed, a governor or two or someone who stole, then people will fear. Because our problem is not the borrowing, it's the stealing.
We've become actually a nation of thieves. The only thing we lack is an opportunity to steal.
The guys who quote the Bible and say, I'm a Christian and all that, and you know they're thieves. Return what you have stolen 4 times. If you know that you have property or anything that you have stolen, just return and say, my God does not allow me to hold stolen things.
We are also a reflection of you, because you elect us. You know, we don't get into our office by ourselves. We are a reflection of the people who elect us.
We don't want to go to the streets. We have a constitution that enables us to assert our will.
When the legislators are now being taken as hostage by the executive for whatever reason, we are now bound by what they want us to do.
This is just outside the realms of reality. We have impunity written into the DNA of our political class.
How old were you when you learned that Jeshi la Wokoh is Jeshi la Wokoh?
I can't say it very well. Yeah, you need to adjust the logo.
And everyone knows. Okay.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice FM, Malindi.
It's looking good on Mombasa Road this morning. Not much traffic, a little bit inbound. And this is right around Cabanas, that area. But before that, it seems to be flowing smooth and clear all the way. Not too much of an issue there. Langata Road building up at the southern bypass, just that junction, a little bit of drama there. But then we're also seeing hot and heavy traffic further down, coming towards the SGR. So that's what Mombasa Road looks like, at least for now. All right, that industrial area circuit, some traffic going on Jogo Road, actually quite a lot of it building up as you get towards the City Stadium roundabout. Lunga Lunga is also piling up some, as is Likoni Road, feeding off then to the Likoni interchange. Outbound, not too much. Inbound, though, to Mombasa Road, where we do have some traffic. Uhuru Highway, that sore spot, right after the Bunyala Road roundabout, that is an issue there. Coming out of Westlands a little bit as well, folks deciding to use the Red Hill Link Road. Good on you guys. That's what you need to do. Get out of that traffic situation and use that. Coming off into the city then from the Thika Superhighway and Kiambu Road, that's where we're going to see the most of the traffic, at least for now. And it's really piling up towards those areas. So let's keep an eye out for that so you know what lies ahead. SpiceFM KE on Twitter, that's how you can get in touch. Tell us what you see, just in case. We'll be here to help you out, at least show you where to or where not to go. Text as well on 40127.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
24 minutes to 7
94.
city. What you looking at?
You know, there is so much to look at and to talk about in Kenya, and most of it is depressing. So, I am going to change tact and look at something else. I am going to take our mind back to a story that appeared in the East African, as the East African for. Okay. The story we have, the story around the maritime issues we have with Somalia. Okay. On page 10 of the East African, there is an article headlined ICJ Judgment Creates Tough Decisions for Future Relations of Kenya and Somalia. Okay. This is now the subtext. While Somalia is jubilant over its victory, Kenya has questioned the court's impartiality and jurisdiction. The two countries need to sit down and engage in cordial talks to implement the judgment. Let me explain why I have focused on this. Our president was recently in the US, and among the take-home messages that the newspapers reported as having been a task that President Biden of the USA had given Uhuru was to try and wade into the conflict that is now raging in Ethiopia. Now, all these things fall under the broad category of something that we can refer to as our foreign policy, okay? The policies we have in dealing with our neighbors, countries that aren't ours, and how it impacts on the ordinary Kenyan. Now, the president currently, I think until the end of this month, is chairman of the Security Council, okay? On the international arena, we are considered highly. We are regarded highly. There are reasons why we are regarded highly. But how does that high regard translate into a better life for the ordinary mwananchi? Because it's like someone who's at a domestic level. The whole world thinks the world of you, and yet in your own home, children go without meals for days.
That's very interesting. My mother used to say, you don't have food in your house, but the cloth that your child is wearing wants to push people down on the road.
Now, the amount of focus, that same amount of focus that we put on the PR and the good image that we have, and this stability that we take for granted, these very countries that we are being asked to create peace for, do we realize just how much we are allowing instability to simply creep very, very slowly into the system with the broken promises? Not just among ourselves, the handling of issues with our neighbors so that you can retain a certain understanding of honesty and a certain understanding of reliability. How strong is a government whose people feel they cannot rely on it? Because the strength of any country is actually its people.
Indeed.
If the people are cohesive and they listen and they believe that the country has the government has their best interest at heart, that's a peaceful country, that's a progressive country. But we have one where that very essence that we're talking about is constantly being eroded, constantly.
Promises, things to be done or things not to be done. And, even as we see these stories in the paper or in the reports every day, I say, well, maybe it's going to get to a time where it's just too much to bear, right? But I think it's important. On page 22 and 23 of the Standard, just looking at what we're talking about, a man kills father as lover slashes a woman's throat. The very next page, family demands probe in killing of kin and claims police are shielding suspects. On the bottom of the same page, Kiunjuri wants more police reservists in Olmoran because obviously more people are being killed. A woman has been held for hitting her hungry son with an axe. Residents find headless body dumped in a field. What is all of this? This is all death that is happening at the hands of other human beings. This one, 3 people killed in separate incidents. A man in Chepkoyo village, Ainamoi constituency, killed his 57-year-old father and buried the body in a shallow grave in their farm. Kericho East Officer Commanding Police Division Caleb Wessa said the man was first reported missing on Saturday, only to be found dead. Zablon Kemei had participated in the search of the deceased, said a dog sniffed out the decomposing body. We first uncovered part of the deceased feet and toes. We immediately alerted the police, and Mr. Wessa said they had obtained orders for the exhumation of the body. And it turns out that this was actually the father. Another 28-year-old suspect, the 28-year-old suspect was pursued by the mob and lynched 4 kilometers from their home. In the second incident, Winnie Chepkemoi was killed at dawn in her restaurant in Chebaun Belgut constituency as she prepared breakfast for her customers. Kericho County Police Commander Silas Kishunge said they were looking for her estranged lover, who is the main suspect. Her throat was slit and there was a deep cut in her belly. According to them, the deceased landlord, she had confiscated a boda. She had allegedly bought him. Before he came over and killed her, the two had another quarrel. In another incident in the same area, Kericho Officer Commanding Police Station Osama Mohammed led the police in arresting a most wanted gangster in town. All of these things happening, and we say, should we be reporting such morbid things all the time? I think it's important to show what's really going on here. And another woman, her son is hungry, and the only way to deal with his cry is to shut him up with an axe.
It's quite sad.
We have said this on many occasions.
And the son is just 7 years old.
7 years old, and he had stolen 80 shillings to go and buy a meal from her.
And in Maimahiu, residents found a decapitated body of a man dumped by the roadside.
We have said that these stories are going to increase, not decrease. And more, you are looking at crimes and you wonder about the genesis, but clearly these people were angry.
Yep.
They call them crimes of passion. Do you really want a country that is constantly representing this amount of anger? People are killing their loved ones. Is this not bizarre? It's not as though they've gone to war. They're at war with themselves, and then they're passing on the war to the people closest and next to them. And it's a constant.
I don't know what needs to be said any louder for it to be heard. This mental health issue in the country, something needs to be done about it. There needs to be an answer to the cries for state of emergency. Something needs to be done at the very basic level in terms of what you can go to do to find that kind of care. But then you ask yourself, all right, with the healthcare system that's dilapidated at best, what are you going to be able to do now to insert any kind of psychological care?
Eh.
Where do we start? In terms of priorities, it doesn't seem like one for government, right?
Yeah. It's something that, in fact, the president should have addressed yesterday as well. You know, because it's a big thing. This is the story again of the police officer. Okay, it's a prison warder. The police in Thika are investigating circumstances that led to the killing of a 31-year-old prison warden. Muga Ndu Okoh was confirmed dead at Nairobi Hospital on the 11th of October after being attacked at Makongeni Estate in Thika. The police told the family of the deceased that their son was attacked by a mob while walking home, but the family demanded that Muthengi's death be investigated by the Internal Affairs Unit and the IPOA. Their demand was informed by the fact that for 3 months earlier, the deceased had filed a complaint with the National Police Service Internal Affairs Unit against a serving police officer in Thika. A post-mortem exam was conducted at Montezuma, and the exam was also the government pathologist, Johansen Odor, ruled out the possibility that Muthengi could have died as a result of mob justice. It showed that he had died of a blunt force trauma caused by a single blow to the back of the head. Police had said this man was walking home, he was killed by a mob. Family believe that he was killed by police officers that he met on his way home on the night of 11th of October. At the heart of these investigations is Muthengi's complaint against a police officer. The complaint against the policewoman originated from a rape case filed at the Thika police station against the prison warden. In his statement to the Internal Affairs Unit, Muthengi claimed that the officer had been threatening to revive a rape case against him even after the matter was withdrawn from court. He claimed the officers had received 40,000 shillings to facilitate the withdrawal of the case. And even after receiving the money and also compensating the complainant, the officers had continued to ask for more money. He asked the IEU to investigate the female police officer. So, June, rape complaint filed at the Thika police station. June 28th, Muthengi arrested and locked up at the Thika police station. Following day, Muthengi is charged at the Thika law courts and remanded. July 6th, he is released on a 30,000 shillings cash bail. August 4th, Muthengi claims to have received a call from an officer based at the Thika police station who asked for cash to facilitate withdrawal of the case. 7th, Muthengi and the police officer agreed to have the matter withdrawn and the case dealt with outside the court. The complainant and the accused meet and they agree. Money changes hands. August 11th, case officially withdrawn from the court. August 15th, Muthengi sends a text message to the policewoman asking for his money. October 11th, he dies.
Very odd here.
It's a story just you can't really understand. So what was this? What was happening?
What was going on here? Can't really make heads or tails of it here because
There was a case, rape. There's an accusation of rape, and then there's a story. Okay, let's remove this thing. Give us some money, so this case can be withdrawn. Case is withdrawn. The alleged victim and the suspect, they meet, they shake hands, cash changes hands. Next thing, the suspect is calling a police officer and saying, "Can I get my money back?"
Truly.
And he says they're asking for more money, even after I've already paid and the case has been withdrawn. There's a lot here that's...
It's symptomatic of something that, you see, you are talking about, if it wasn't a case of somebody who had died, this would not be a story.
Yeah.
No.
Because hands would have been shaken, money would have...
And everybody would have kept
yes,
quiet.
and life would have gone on. Meaning, by the time such a thing is being reported, it is being reported as though it's something that is normal.
Yep.
Now, remember the discussion we had about us, the slippery slope of making something which is unusual and abnormal normal. Surely, if somebody was raped, should that case not follow the path it ought to follow and come to its logical conclusion? The question that begs to be asked, was there rape?
Big questions there. Big questions there. I noticed the involvement of the alleged victim and the police officers.
Yes.
What's their connection?
You know, there's an issue here. What seems to be for sale here is convenience.
Yep.
If you do not pay the money, you will be inconvenienced to your guilt.
Yes. You'll go to court, you'll be locked up,
Yes, but you see, the story doesn't end there. Because the slippery slope is, from what we read, if you then pay money, you've opened the door for further extortion. So it doesn't end with you paying.
Yeah.
It just opens the door for more payment.
Yeah. Aye. Anyway, let's take this quick break. It's 11 minutes to 7, Kenya's biggest conversation. It continues. We are looking at the big headlines in the papers.
There are so many people peddling what is false and that it bears remarkable resemblance to what is true.
Politicians have their agenda, and their agenda is to use every opportunity to sell that agenda and to loot this nation.
I have seen major strides that are done in this country when we talk to each other as against talking at each other.
We start getting back into the tribal cocoons which were put to us by the colonial powers. You know, they gave us physical freedom but not mental freedom. We're still mentally colonized today into these cocoons of tribe.
Now, if you live in an area where it's difficult to find a dog,
He's a goat. I kid you not.
In which part of this country is it difficult to find a dog? So that you resort. Nafandi hii umbo yako iko na pembe.
Hii ni umba special.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
9 minutes to 7. We're looking at more headlines in the papers. What's in the nation, CT?
I don't have the nation today.
Okay.
My person,
your personal person,
was not available at that hour when I was coming to work.
Ole.
Yes.
Okay. Page 24 then of the Standard. Reprieve for defaulters as Uhuru orders freeze on CRB loan listing. MSMEs defaulting on loans below 5 million shillings will not be reported to the CRB for the next 12 months. This follows the President's directive to support the recovery of small firms. The directive, which is part of President Kenyatta's 13-point stimulus program, announced yesterday, offers a reprieve to the many small businesses that are struggling to recover from coronavirus-induced economic disruption. The President said the relevant authorities will, for loans less than 5 million shillings, effect a moratorium of listing in CRBs for 12 months to the end of September next year. The moratorium is likely to rattle banks that rely on CRB reports to prompt borrowers to repay loans. Uhuru also directed that MSMEs defaulting on loans below 5 million shillings will not have the history factored in their debt reports, a move that will leave banks flying in the dark. The latest lending survey by the CBK shows there were 915,000 active MSME loan accounts in the banking industry as of December last year, with a total value of 638 billion shillings. About a fifth, or 204,000 MSME accounts valued at 98 billion, were classified as non-performing loans. That's about 22% of the total loan defaults in the banking industry. Now, the President says, okay, if somebody has defaulted below 5 million shillings, it's all right, report them, but do not accompany their history.
Right.
If, that's about, if somebody defaults, do not report them to the CRB for the next 1 year. Okay.
Just take it easy, guys. Surely.
Wacha watu wafanye kazi.
To pick it up.
Yeah.
They're not defaulters by choice.
Just
their circumstances.
Be easy.
Just put a pin in it, man.
Actually, what the institutions are now being forced to do is to be creative.
Yeah.
Because the understanding, if you look at the history, I think this COVID period has seen very many changes in the banking sector with regards to this matter. And banks have been trying to be understanding and to accommodate their clients.
Listen, even come in and let's have a chat. What's comfortable with you?
Yes.
Yeah.
As I said, none of those teeth-rattling letters that banks were notorious for writing. Okay. But again, this now takes it a step further and says, folks, since curfew, since COVID, no bank has gone under. In fact, banks have been reporting profits.
Yep.
Reduced profits, but profits,
all
not
the
the same. So, your contribution to this fight is just pause.
Look the other
You'll
way.
be all right.
Pause. Don't even, Eric, don't even look the other way. Have another conversation with. Like, for instance, if this guy is supposed to pay you 2,000 shillings a month, call them.
But also, you see, why I'm saying look the other way is when you're going to, as an SME, if you're going to ask to borrow, one of the things that the risk assessors are going to look at is your CRB history.
Not one of the things.
Right?
The key thing they're going to look at.
So now they don't
is
have access to that information.
Yes, they don't.
So they don't know, are you credit worthy, are you not?
They don't have access to it now.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that the history didn't exist before now.
We've been told, not even history, don't factor in history.
Eric.
Alafu now, if you're in default, as we speak, if you're in default, you're not listed with the CRB.
You don't need CRB to tell you that somebody is in default. No, you don't.
How do you?
See, you're the bank.
No. They're in default with somebody else.
With the other person,
Yes.
not
Does
that
it? No,
particular
no.
financial
Hold it.
You see, with
Hold
CRB,
it.
you're checking and then finding, all right,
Yes,
this person
yes.
has been listed by Ndu,
Yes.
and they have defaulted.
Yes.
And they have come to me to borrow.
Yes.
So I'm like, just looking at
Does
you. I can see.
this issue by the president, does this dictate, does it determine that banks cannot consult with other banks to determine someone's, because one of the things they ask you when you're borrowing money is to list other institutions where you have an account.
Yeah.
Now, we're taking the view that Kenyans will lie.
Voluntarily.
Yes, they will volunteer to lie. Okay? Now, does it stop banks from actually talking? It's a little tedious because with the CRB, it's just a question of printing and you get the listing. Does it stop you from talking and asking and saying, folks, might you have A, B, C, D? I'm simply saying that instead of going by an express train, you're now being asked to walk. We're back to the days when there was no internet, yet banks could figure out exactly how it is someone's financial situation was. That's where they are. Which means you're going to have to talk a lot more with this client than you've talked before. The bit that I liked was the restructuring of the loan. That bit I liked. Let me tell you, my own personal experience, restructuring. Man, it can be a teeth-pulling exercise. It's supposed to be available. The bank will not say no, but to get it actually done, where? It's a really lengthy process.
Let's see how it works out. Let's see how it works out. Then also, counties apparently during this COVID manenos spent 7 billion shillings on COVID intervention, according
they did.
to the Controller of Budget. The latest report from the Office of the Controller of Budget, the bulk of these funds were used to acquire PPEs, ventilators, and construction of isolation wards at county health centres. The report details funds spent by devolved units to manage the outbreak of the global pandemic. Mandera, Kitui, and Mombasa counties led in allocations towards the pandemic, spending 644 million shillings in Mandera, 405 million shillings in Kitui, 319 million shillings in Mombasa. According to the Controller of Budget report, 68 million of Mombasa county's budgetary allocation went to allowances for healthcare workers. 79 million went on purchasing emergency foodstuff for vulnerable groups. Other counties that topped the list were Trans Nzoia with 299 million, Turkana spent 255 million on COVID, Nandi 224 million, Nyamira 221 million, and the counties of Kajiado, Kilifi and Machakos did not report on their COVID spend in the period under review. Majority of these funds were direct disbursement from the national government as a share of the received from bilateral partners such as the World Bank and other donors. This is the money that was coming. That 5 billion, a lot of this money now came from there. It says, it was going into, we bought food for people. We
bought water.
Yeah, we bought water for people. We bought PPEs. What else did we do? We set up some emergency isolation centers. This pesa imeenda. We spent. You want to know how we spent? See, I told you we spent.
That's it.
Yeah. Why are you doubting when you tell you that we spent the money? Now, this money that the President announced yesterday, especially the 8 billion shillings, that's coming directly from the National Treasury and going to a school in Tamu that they're expanding, building a new classroom somewhere. And it will be a local, artisan who gets paid directly. It's not going through, no, it's coming directly to the artisan to build new classrooms. Wait and see the quality of classrooms that we're going to have in the name of new classrooms that are being built. And then CDF have also been told, MPs, come on guys, just dedicate a lot more money on to helping us build these classrooms.
So from your CDF allocation, just, remember that this CDF allows members of parliament to be lords of the manor.
This is exactly it. Campaign season is up. Someone will say, we spent money to build new classrooms in our school. How much did we spend? 100 million shillings. You will see. Keep it right here for more conversations coming up in the next hour. This is the Situation Room on radio and online. It's now 7 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning, this is the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga. Several Kenyans enjoyed their first night out without having to go home by 10 p.m. after President Uhuru Kenyatta lifted the dusk to dawn curfew. We hit the streets and a number of them were still in bars drinking, whereas others were running their businesses without fear of being arrested. We spoke to some of them and this is what they had to say.
Our president has done a great thing. We are very happy as revelers of all bars in Nairobi. The economy is going to increase because the night economy is the greatest thing that has happened to this nation. We are so happy because we are going to drink till morning.
Mimi ni mhudumu wa matatu eneo la Njoro kuelekea hadi Nakuru mpaka Egerton University. Kwanza ninashukuru rais kwa kutuondolea makataa ya curfew sababu biashara yetu kusema kweli itarudi hali ya kawaida.
Mimi ni mama mboga hapa. Tunashukuru kwa kutupea time tuuse mpaka saa yenye natakikana. Hapa ni Wasingishu, tunauza mboga, tunangangana, lakini tumefurahia sana rais wetu kutupea hii muda ya kutafuta pesa.
Meanwhile, Machakos Governor Alfred Muthui has termed the move to end the curfew showed that Kenya has reached an age where it's able to self-govern itself.
I saw a cartoon in one of the papers today that kind of captures part of the mood of the nation in a joking manner, where they have, words that you cannot read, and all the people had was curfew lifted. So that seems to have been the highlight of Mashujaa Day. And it showed that Kenya, we've reached an age whereby tunajitawala na tunajitawala vizuri na maisha yanaendelea. And it cannot be politics all the time. So this is a good celebration of our heroes, and heroes are those people who work hard to get things moving for themselves.
Elsewhere, the National Police Service says following the vacation of the COVID-19 associated curfew by President Uhuru Kenyatta, existing measures on closure of bars by 7 p.m. will remain in place for now. The service further states that the enforcement of violation of this measure will continue. Their statement is, however, not in tandem with that of the Tourism and Wildlife CS Najib Balala, who has also declared that operations in the hospitality industry are back to normal due to the lifting of the nationwide curfew by the President. Balala further stated that this meant that the 7 p.m. closure time that had been in place for bars, restaurants and nightclubs had ended. However, Health CS Muthui Kagwe is today expected to address the nation on the reviewed COVID-19 measures that aren't clear among Kenyans. 3 people were killed in a road accident in Salama along the Nairobi-Mombasa highway. The accident involved 2 trucks that burst into flames after colliding head-on. Witnesses say one of the trailers travelling to Mombasa appeared to have lost control, left its lane and collided with the oncoming trailer. The 3 were burnt beyond recognition due to the fire that was a result of the impact of the crash.
Hiyo dakika nyingine hii ingine ikawaka, so zote zikawaka, hakuna msee alisaidiwa. Hiyo moto ikasababisha hata sisi wenye tulikuwa hapo watu wa bodaboda tuanze kutoroka sababu iliripuka sasa hiyo kitu imetushangaza sana, na hii ajali hapa imekuwa mingi sana.
A 10-year-old boy is fighting for his life in Siaya County Referral Hospital after attempts to cast out demons left him with serious burns. The boy's grandmother says she was advised to have the boy undergo exorcism after he developed a tendency of disappearing from the family home. The grandmother said a woman approached her and told her that the child was possessed with demons.
Walikuwa na mafuta taa ambayo waliweka kwa mdomo na wakapuliza na wakaakisha kibriti ili wakisema hiyo ndio inatoa pepo. Sasa hiyo harakati za kuakisha kibriti ndio mafuta iliangukia mtoto na mtoto akaanza kuchomeka.
Meanwhile, Gem Sub-County Police Commander Charles Chasa says 2 women who were arrested yesterday in connection with the incident will today be arraigned in court. Chief Justice Martha Koome has launched the alternative justice system model in Kajiado County aimed at reducing case backlogs. The system gives councils of elders and religious leaders a bigger role in the justice system. Koome said the system also aims at providing alternative forms of dispute resolution mechanisms, including traditional approaches, as long as they don't contravene the constitution.
Because people should be able to solve their own disputes. So Kajiado, you are a pace setter. Kajiado, you are champions of justice. Kajiado, you are a model, and you have made me so proud. I'm also so proud of the Honorable Professor Justice Goge for the work that they have done of launching this project. And you have heard from His Excellency the Governor, some disputes have already been resolved.
Kajiado Governor Joseph Olelenku lauded the move, saying the system was going to make justice easily accessible as well as reduce the number of people being incarcerated for petty crimes.
The introduction of alternative justice system by the judiciary cannot have come at a better time, as the county government has already embarked on investing resources to support our land sector reforms.
That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
SpiceFM, Nakuru.
All right, so we're looking at heightened levels of traffic this morning on the Thika Superhighway, and it's already spilled over onto Outer Ring. So folks are back from that little bit of a holiday, and at where we're seeing that it was green yesterday, it's all red today completely. So the Thika Superhighway coming into the city, past the Utali Drift, out then towards Pangani. Kiambu Road also is piling up. We're looking at Uhuru Highway, very, very full already, and this is inbound the city. Coming out of Westlands as well, that whole James Gishuru coming out to Mudangari area, spilling over to Wayaki Way. So why don't you just keep going west, guys, and then use the link road out off of Wayaki Way and then round back into the city. That's your option for now, so you don't have to be stuck in the mess that is Wayaki Way. All right, getting round to the Bunyala Road roundabout coming out from Aerodrome, that's building up as well. Langata Road is already packed. The Southern Bypass as an option to get into the city is still available, so use that as well. Jogo Road still an issue right now. We are in traffic hour earlier than usual this morning, but we're in it all the same. So let's be careful as we use those roads. Tell us where you might be stuck or you find a good route. Let us know this morning. SpiceFMKE on Twitter. Let's text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room. The only
8
way
minutes
to
after
start
7. A very good morning to you. How are you doing? We are glad that you are tuned into Spice FM this morning. This is The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation on the 21st day of October 2021, first day after curfew and the year of our Lord. C.T. Muga has the day's proverb.
Zogolo kiuka sio dawa ya kucha. That's a Digo proverb, which means the cock crowing doesn't cause the dawn to break.
Zogolo, say again.
Zogolo. Kuika sio dawa ya kucha.
Zogolo kuika sio dawa ya kucha.
Sounds like Swahili
Jogo
to me.
kuika sio dawa ya kucha. Yes.
Okay. A cock crowing
doesn't cause the break of dawn.
Does not cause the break of dawn.
No.
That's a good one. Welcome to our audience on KTN Home who join us at 7 a.m. this morning. You're with us until 9 a.m. It's going to be an interesting conversation that we will be having shortly because it's about sustainable use of grassland and rangelands resources for improved livelihoods. Now, there's going to be a joint International Grassland and Rangeland Congress 2021, and we have 3 experts in this field joining us in the conversation. One of them is in the studio and 2 are joining us virtually. The one in the studio is Professor Jesse Njoka, Associate Professor in Range Management at the University of Nairobi. Good morning, Prof.
Good morning, sir.
It's good to have you in the show. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you.
We normally call that seat the hot seat, but because you're our friend and we give you that respect, we're not going to make it a hot seat. We just make it a little bit warm. Just for you, for your comfort.
Thank you.
The others who are joining us online are Dr. David Miano. Dr. David Miano is a Calrose from Calrose Non-Ruminant Research Center. Calro, for those who do not know, is the Kenya Agriculture and Livestock Research Organization. The other one is Dr. Ray Smith. He is the president of International Grassland Society and also the president of this Congress, the Joint International Grassland and Rangeland Congress 2021. Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning.
Good to have you on the show, and thank you very much for joining us. I want to start just the conversation here with you, Prof.
Yes.
With the definitions. Grasslands and rangelands. What are they? What's the difference?
Well, to lay people, they are the same. But to the people who are in those fields, there is a real difference because rangelands actually constitute grasslands and woodlands and shrublands. But grasslands is where the percentage of the woodland, shrublands, or any other type of species is much lower. So grasslands are fairly open. You can see far. They can be found in the glades of forest where you have an area that is actually grassland only. But normally grasslands are in the open drylands areas. And when there is misuse or overgrazing of the grasslands, they can turn into bushlands. Mm-hmm. And this is where we have savannas, where you can't tell whether you're in grassland or woodland because of that dynamics. Yeah.
And why are they important? Why are we having this? Why are they important, either for their preservation or their use?
Well, you see, grasses constitute a very big part of our diet. For example, where you have good tall grasslands, you can grow wheat. And wheat is one of the major crops. Even maize is a grass. So some areas where you can grow grass, they are good for maize. But in the natural setting, you have many, many types of grasses that are of great value for livestock production and for something else that is becoming very important today, what we are calling carbon storage in the soil, carbon sequestration, because it has a link to the climate change. So it is important that the grasslands give us what we call ecological services, socio-ecosystem services, providing food, providing wildlife sources of food, and covering the soil so that there is no erosion. So it's very important.
If I were to ask,
yes, please.
Right now, today, on this delightful 21st day of October 2021,
yes,
what percentage of our planet is covered with grass, and what percentage is covered with the rangeland that you mentioned, and what percentage is actually covered by forest?
Okay. First of all, let's define rangelands, because Sometimes grasslands are subsumed to be part of the rangelands, and that's why you have this joint congress where you have International Grassland Congress and International Rangeland Congress. They have decided to come together, and this is the first time they have come to Africa as a joint congress. Now, in terms of the question you're asking, the how do you tell the difference? I would say that grasslands are mainly where we are producing fodder for livestock. If you look at our thematic area for this Congress, we have 7 sub-themes, which I think my colleagues will elaborate. And one of them is forage and fodder production. That's like grasslands. And it's very important in many countries, even the temperate countries. And rangelands is where everything is wild. You can't convert it for crops. Neither can you put it at the forest. So, and that constitutes, some people say, almost 60% of the dry earth. Here in Kenya, we sometimes say it's 90%. So the productive part of Kenya in the way of getting adequate rainfall is only about 20%. But because of the way we are using the land, it's becoming more, you have heard of desert moving. So sometimes you say it's 90% of Kenya. So we cannot ignore 60% of the dry earth, 90% of Kenya, and 70% of the IGAD region, that is the Horn of Africa, that is characterized by these ridgelands. So they are very important in the long run, and if we want to progress as a country, we have to take care of the drylands, ridgelands. Currently now we are in the midst of drought, and everything might stop just to feed the people who cannot cope in those drylands, ridgelands, because we have to feed them. It's our obligation. But how can we help them to use that land the way it is to contribute to the national economy and also to give them a dignified way of life? Yeah.
Professor Smith, if I may ask this question to you. This is the first time this Congress has come to the continent of Africa. How many Congresses have you had? And why have you made this decision to come to this continent now at this time?
This is the 24th International Grassland Congress. The first was in 1927, and it's the 11th Rangeland Congress. And the reason we've come to Africa is because Africa is very important in worldwide grasslands and rangelands, not just to livestock, but also to the wildlife. And so people want to see that. They want to experience that. They want to hear about that. So that's why the conference is in Kenya. As it turns out, the conference is virtual, but we plan many virtual tours and other events that people will be able to see the grasslands and rangelands and livestock and wildlife in Kenya.
Okay, so essentially what you are in essence saying is because of the natural and environmental biodiversity of this country and of this continent, it has then become important. Now, okay, we've got that, it's important, but what would be the outcome of such a gathering, apart from beyond information?
So we've got leading scientists from around the world and students that are attending this Congress and presenting the work that they've been doing to study the grasslands, to study the animal production, to study the benefits to the ecosystem, as Professor Jesse talked about. And so all of those people coming together and reporting on it, they're going to learn from each other. But we're also going to have many publications that will come out of this Congress. So we'll be letting the world know more about grasslands and rangelands, and particularly about the importance of those for Africa.
Okay, now my last question to you for now is this. There is an aspect of research that has over time become extremely important, and it's something that people have determined to ensure that they put into practice. How much of the research that you have seen over time has actually fallen into the category of what we call implementation science, meaning research has been done on this, you figured this out, papers have been written, presentations have been made, and the implementation has been this, and this is the outcome of that implementation.
Yeah, very good question. And I was thinking just today, I've got a publication called Progressive Dairy Production, and it's talking to farmers and talking about how to take research and put it into practice. So it's talking about how to make better maize silage and feed that to dairy cattle, and how that's going to give more milk production. It's talking about the nutritional dynamics of the feed that you're giving dairy animals. So in the context of Kenya, the research on some of the new types of grasses that are being grown in Kenya, that's helping the milk production for the smallholder dairies in Kenya. So I don't have a broad list of topics, but I can think of several that fit very closely. So, it may only be half of the research that we do that actually goes to implementation, but that implementation is very important for people out there in the land.
Dr. Miano, just looking at clearly the work that you do and looking at this Congress happening right now, and also the situation in the country for Kenya, whereby some parts of the country obviously are facing drought, perennial drought issues around these areas, and then looking at the importance that rangelands and grasslands have, and also then what Kenya has in terms of its geographical allocations. Why is this important at this time to discuss? And are we then looking at outcomes that can then help in the future to sort out this perennial drought issue that the country continues to face?
Thank you. I think there are a number of things that we need to look at. In your question, you have just alluded to climate change. Climate change is a big issue, and therefore we are having what we call extreme climatic conditions. We have droughts, followed with floods, and issues like that. And when you look at grasslands and rangelands, one, as was said by Professor Njoka, they are a big carbon sink, therefore mitigating issues of greenhouse gases because they can store a lot of carbon in the system. So that's an area we need to really focus on. Look at how sustainably to use these ecosystems to provide the services that are there. As Professor Njoka elaborated, issues, food security, but I want to add a few other things. These areas are home to a lot of our pollinating agents. These pollinators, if they are not there, bees and other insects, then our crops will actually not produce. And there are areas where this has already become an issue. And one of the things we really need to look at is how we sustainably use these areas so that then they provide the services that they provide to us. In terms of helping the people who live in these areas, in Kenya, we're really talking about quarter the population of this country, about 10 million plus, live in these rangelands and grasslands. But we are also looking at the crops and the type of plants that grow there and how we can use that then to improve our agriculture. We are talking about improving the grasses themselves so that then they are more productive for those areas. We are looking at management systems that will then help the people living in those rangelands to utilize the resources more effectively. And just to mention that if we are in Kenya and in the IGAD region, as Professor Njoka says, 70% of our livestock is actually in these areas. So all our meat, a lot of our milk actually comes from these zones. So that's why they're very, very important for us to take care of. Now, one of the major reasons why we wanted to hold this Congress in Kenya, and in Africa for that matter, is for us to bring focus to the challenges that we are facing, or the people living in the grasslands are facing, and also bring solutions that then help sort out the challenges that they are facing right now. So in terms of this Congress, we also want to focus on this rangeland so that our policymakers, our investment plans can also look at what then needs to be done in these areas so that then we can improve the lives of the people living there.
Just to follow up to that, Dr. Miano, it would appear as though, what is available is not adequate for the populations. That's what it would appear. Is there a different outlook to this, that the land that is available for both humans and animals to consume is not adequate? Or are we not making proper use, and in terms of challenges that you talk about, onto solutions, are we not making proper use and also not looking at proper solutions onto preservation of these lands? And are those some of the things then that we would be looking at?
Now, several things. Obviously, the population in these areas has been growing, so there's population pressure. But having said that, then that's where research comes in to develop technologies and innovations that then help us utilize these areas more effectively to feed the growing population, not only of humans, but also of our livestock and also our wildlife. So providing solutions through research, through technologies and innovations is one of the things that Caro and a lot of our research partners are looking at to improve what happens in these areas. Now, the other major area is that as we look at this, then we need to invest in a lot of these areas. And a lot of these areas, what might be a problem is just water. If you provide a bit of water, manage that properly, then we have major solutions that we have for these areas. So yeah, true, population is growing, there's population pressure, but with technology, I'm sure we can feed the population living in these areas.
Dr. Miano, Calro has done some astounding work over time, amazingly so. But I want you to paint for us a picture of success where some of the schemes that you mentioned and the technological advances that you've applied have been put in place, and what a success story looks like.
Now, let me start with one of what is unique in the whole world. Kenya is known for smallholder dairy systems, where a lot of our small-scale producers produce all the milk that we take in this country. Now, if you look at some of the plants, some of the forages that we are using in those systems, including Napier grass and others that we are developing right now, this has been the contribution of research into these systems, to sustain these systems and to make them more productive. The areas of rangelands and drylands, we have produced in the last 4 or 5 years, about 6 different grass varieties, improved grass varieties that are becoming commercially available, so that the farmers and the livestock keepers living in these areas then can utilize these grasses to improve the productivity of the land, and hence, therefore, also improve the productivity of livestock in those areas.
Going to be a bit of a pain here. Mention the specific areas where this has worked, like say it worked in Marsabit, it worked in Isiolo, it worked in Turkana, and it worked in this area. The reason why I ask this is because a lot of the work that Calro does, I said, I am a great fan of what Calro has done, because I've seen what they've done, but not all our listeners have. So when you talk about a specific area and what the specific thing that you did, and specifically also how one can get to actually enjoy some of these research benefits, it helps paint a more realistic picture to somebody who wants to understand this grassland, rangeland relationship. Yes.
Let me give you a number of examples.
Thank you, sir.
And it's good to hear you are a fan of our work.
Oh, yes, I am.
Now, if you currently go into Makueni County, working together with the county government of Makueni, we have developed a fodder system where farmers actually grow grasses that are then harvested, and the county government has been very kind and built a lot of storage facilities, where then these farmers are actually trading in hay to take to high potential areas or high rainfall areas as a product from the dry areas. So, and these farmers are earning quite a bit of money. I've just visited a farmer in the area of Kibwezi, who is actually producing feed from grasses and making quite a bit of money out of it. And I can go on. We have a very big activity right now going on in Narok and Kajiado, where we are introducing some of our improved grasses to the Maasai community so they can also benefit from the products of our research. If you go to the areas of Kajiado right now, you'll find a breed of cattle called the Sahiwo. And when you go to Kajiado and Narok, it's actually called Rangi Apesa, because by using this breed that Caro has been working on for the last 100 years or so, they have managed to improve the productivity of their herds. They have better quality meat, and they are therefore earning much more money in the market. And that's why they call the Sahiwa breed Rangi Apesa in Narok and Kajiado.
Good examples. Let's take a break on that very good note. It's 7:30. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. We are live on SpiceFM, on KTN Home, and also live streaming the show online. Professor Justin Joka, Associate Professor in Range Management from the University of Nairobi, is with us in the studio. And joining us on a video link is Professor David Miano from Carl Rose Non-Ruminant Research Center, and also Dr. Ray Smith, President of the International Grassland Society, but also President of the Joint International Grassland and Rangeland Congress. The Congress will be taking place in this country 2021. Sustainable use of grassland and rangeland resources for improved livelihoods. That's the conversation we're having. Let's continue with it after this quick break when we take a look at the weather and traffic, the situation on the roads this morning. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Hello.
Halo, umesikia?
Nimesikia nini?
Hujasikia habari? Hebu acha nikuambie. Kile kimetokea.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Don't wait for hearsay. Dial *550*1# to read the Standard e-paper from the convenience of your mobile phone for only 20 shillings from your telecom line, and stay up to date for a reliable source with over 100 years of experience with no additional data charges.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
No, this wheelbarrow, how can you give people wheelbarrow? His party symbol is an umbrella. Is he distributing umbrellas in McQueen?
Have you been told if we don't lock between 10 to 4, this is what we're saving?
You try and call them, the same person who was in your house every day, because they know you are influential and you will give them votes. Call them after 1 month and see if they'll pick up their phone.
Don't tell your member of parliament that you want him to come and build a school, you want him to come and do a hospital. That is not the work of the member. Now that we have devolution in this country, these resources should go to those devolved units.
You have to have strong, independent institutions. And I mean, you have to have police who has the right to take the biggest town in the country and question, why did you do this and that, and send them to court if necessary.
Joel in Kericho, good morning.
Salama sana Eric, habari ya asubuhi.
Salama kabisa. Mbunge wako ni nani?
Anaitwa Seriousness Maritim, hapa ni Ainamoi.
Seriousness Maritim, Ainamoi.
Yes. Sasa ile juma namwambia yeye nini? Amalize aende. Asante sana.
That's it.
The weather with Spice FM.
Cloudy conditions in Nairobi at 15, highs of 24 and lows of 14. Nakuru is sunny at 14, highs of 25 and lows of 13. Rain showers at 15 in Nyeri. 22 will be the high and lows of 14. 13 degrees and sunny conditions in Eldoret, highs of 23 and lows of 13. In Mombasa, it's raining now at 25, highs of 30 and lows of 24. While in Malindi, light rain at 26 with highs of 30. We'll see lows of 25. Kisumu is mostly sunny at 19, highs of 28. And in Kakamega, mostly sunny conditions at 19, highs of 29 and lows of 15. Kampala is rainy at 19, highs of 26 and lows of 18. While in Dar es Salaam, partly sunny conditions at 24, highs of 31 and lows of 23. We're looking at sunny conditions at 13 in Johannesburg, highs of 24 and lows of 12, 15 this morning, rather 26 in Lagos, light rain as well, highs of 30 and lows of 24. Partly cloudy conditions at 22 in Kinshasa. We'll see highs of 31 and lows of 22.
Spice up your life.
All right, so traffic still continues to build up on Uhuru Highway this morning, getting out into the city. Aerodrome is already packed, and we're looking at coming from Bunyala Road, going towards coming from the eastern side of the city, and then coming from the southern side as well. Langata Road is also packed as well. We're looking at that going all the way towards the Wilson Airport, that Langata Road area. South Sea, Nairobi West, a lot of traffic there. Everybody who's feeding off of Uhuru Highway this morning going into the city. Gong Road also piling up quite some. And we're also looking at traffic coming out of the General Westlands area. So that started off quite early today and tried to get onto Waiaki Way. And so we're saying you're getting stuck on Waiaki Way. What you ought to do is use the Red Hill Link Road, providing good solutions for folks this morning. That's an option for you to use. Don't get stuck. Also, Thika Super Highway, that's packed. It's coming off of Outer Ring. Looking a little bit better now, going then towards Survey, coming from Kiambu Road as well. Limuru Road offering up some good doses of traffic this morning. Avoid it if you can. All right, we'll be here to let you know where you can or cannot go. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
The conversation continues at 24 minutes to 8. This is the Situation Room on Spice FM around the country and around the world. Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and also we are on KTN Home. With us in the studio is Professor Jesse Njoka, Associate Professor in Range Management at the University of Nairobi, Dr. David Miano from Calro, and Dr. Ray Smith, President of the International Grassland and Rangeland Congress 2021.
Professor.
Yes.
When you talk of grass in this country, at least what I hear is also the absence of grass. When you talk about shrubbery, you talk about trees, I also think of, again, an absence of shrubs and an absence of trees, which means a fast encroaching phenomenon of the desert. Now, grassland, rangeland, the discussion around it, the work around it, the research around it. How do you people in this delightful field go about ensuring, one, the desert doesn't continue growing, or how do you ensure that you recover? We have countries that have been able to actually recover land from the sea, surely. We can recover trees from the desert, can we not?
We can.
Tell us how.
Thank you very much. That's a very good question. In actual fact, I don't know why we have to destroy what we have in order to restore it, because restoration of what is lost is more expensive than prevention. And that's why under the international dryland desertification conference, we have UNCCD. It's a convention that has seen the need for restoration. In actual fact, this year, this decade, is called the year of ecosystem restoration. And rangelands are one of the largest ecosystems for restoration. In actual fact, we are also saying that 2026 will be the year of rangelands. So internationally, the rangelands have come up. And the good thing is that we have the technology to restore whatever is destroyed. We have the types of grasses that we can produce seeds for restoration. In actual fact, Kenya, and maybe Africa as well, some of the best grasses in the world that are being used in Australia, in America, South America, they come from here.
Repeat that again, please.
The top grasses that are used for beef production in Brazil come from Kenya. It's called Bracharia. I think my colleague from Caro can say more about it. It was developed here. Of course, they have developed it further so that naturally the grasses we have are more resilient. They are able to use more of the soil nutrients than some of the grasses in the new world, as you may call it. So that's why they import them there. Another grass is what we call foxtail, or Cenchrus ciliaris. It's really a big, contributes a lot to the beef industry in Australia. And they come right from here. So in terms of what we can do, we can borrow from what's happening in Australia, in America, and wherever they have taken our grasses and improved them, so we can import them back. And actually, that's one of the projects of Caro, trying to bring back Bracharia grass.
That's very interesting that you say that, Prof. And also maybe to get an answer also from Dr. Smith as well. But you've just said something that was found here was taken out, and what we're doing now is encouraging the re-importation of the same thing. What's wrong? I guess maybe all three of you can contribute to this now. What is wrong with then? Because I'm assuming that when it was taken from here, not every inch of it was taken. So it still exists here, right?
Yeah.
What is wrong with using what is currently here and improving on it as opposed to re-importing a perfected version of the same?
Well, you don't have to rediscover the wheel. If they have discovered and improved on what we have, it would be good if we can import it and just move right on. But there are some challenges, there are patents, there are all this and that. In actual fact, to surprise you, the Boran cattle
Yes.
has come from those dry areas of northern Kenya.
Yes.
And it is actually patented in Australia as one of their breeds. It's very good, and there's nothing wrong about that. But they should give us something back, and I think they are giving us something back. We have a lot of rich biodiversity in the drylands, the rangelands. Not just that.
Okay.
There are many others.
So, Dr. Smith, what is the encouragement? If we're looking at the international cooperation here, I'm going to assume it's cooperation. If we're looking at that and now this Congress that now comes here to Kenya, what are we saying? Are we looking at building up of partnerships, or are we looking then at saying, let's all work together for the preservation of this and probably the improvement of what is already there? Because just from what Professor Jesse has just said, it's like what we're saying now in this neck of the woods is to reinvite what was naturally known to some of these parts. So what are we looking at going forward from congresses like this, partnerships, working together onto such conclusions? What are we looking at here?
One of the most important things for this Congress and Congresses like this is partnerships, is collaboration. I was talking to the professor that trained me at the University of Georgia just recently, and he gave me 3 examples of people that he met at international grassland congresses that he developed linkages from that he was able to carry forward his research. And so even in the times that I've come to Kenya and helping plan this conference, I've learned a tremendous amount with how grasslands and rangelands are managed in Kenya. And particularly, there's a lot of advances in how to integrate livestock and wildlife together that has come out of the conservancies in Kenya and been able to go around the world. Professor Jesse was talking about grasses that the material has been taken to other countries and developed, and Kenya is using that back now. Other countries are continuing to, the long and the short, if we take improvements made in Kenya, if we take improvements made in Brazil, if we take improvements made in the U.S., if we all know about those, then we can integrate them in our own countries. If we continue to just work on our own by ourselves, then those improvements aren't made throughout.
Dr. Miano, just listening to, the work that CALRO does, and then the international cooperation that Congress such as this one brings, it basically says that researchers such as yourselves are meeting with researchers from other countries and sharing ideas and sharing progress of what you're able to do. Are you able to secure some of your own research such that then it doesn't end up, being replicated elsewhere and being patented elsewhere? Is it an opportunity? Basically, what I'm asking is, are there risks of such congresses and such collaboration also leading to loss of our ideas and the research work that you've done?
I think let me visit one or two things that have been said before. We are bringing back home criteria from Brazil and other places. But that's not the only thing we are doing. Research takes time, and when you get something that's already good, there's no reason why you should not bring it back and utilize it. But in CARO, what we've done is taken a two-pronged approach. We will re-import what we can, what we will perform, because...
Dr. Miano, I'm afraid I think we have something wrong with your line. Let's try and get you on a clearer line as we continue this conversation. But Prof, maybe you can respond to this. Such conferences, we have people such as yourself. You've been at the university for so long. You have done a lot of research work. Risks of it just finding its way elsewhere?
Well, yes, there are risks, but we better look at the positive side of it, because this networking is a big capital. If you know who is working where and you collaborate, in actual fact, you add a lot of synergy. Competition is much less. Well, if you take, for example, that bracharia, the one that we are re-importing back to Kenya, one of the challenges I think CARO is facing is producing the seeds so that you can share it with the farmers. Somehow, because of how it has been developed in Brazil, we are outside the latitude, and therefore bringing it here, we are finding it's not producing enough seeds, or we need to do something. So we are trying to re-import what came from here, and if we break that, and they can give us permission to work together like that, it's good for everybody. So there is much in collaboration, in partnership. There is less of these conflicts about who owns what. And in actual fact, under International Biodiversity Convention, if you get something, a certain variety or a plant or an animal from somewhere within what you call the wild place, you are supposed also to give something back to where that you got that variety. So we have been receiving a lot back. We are giving also. So this collaboration is good. In actual fact, one of the ladies who is a key speaker in this Congress is coming from Brazil. And she was willing to come here physically, face-to-face Congress. And her motivation, she told us, is to see where this grass has come from.
Obviously, because it has benefited them in untold ways.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And I think for us to benefit from the wealth, the biological capital that we have in those dry areas, one of the big challenge is the governance. the tenure system. Because if you are going to improve your piece of land, you have to actually feel you own it and you get the benefits. But if it's just common use, there's not
no
a lot of
motivation.
investment. So we want to attract investment in these areas, and it is critical that we actually look at it, because I remember, if I'm not wrong, there was one of the president who visited here, and he said, do you have enough grass, enough hay to export to us because of the fattening animals that are being exported to the Middle East? And I attended another conference in Naivasha where we were interacting with the people from northern Somalia. And, I was surprised that they're importing hay.
From Kenya?
No. From Spain and other countries.
And yet...
So, and we have so much land where we can invest properly and produce this. And already, the dairy farmers in Githunguri, I think they have a relationship with the Maasais to grow fodder for them because they don't have enough. Those kind of partnership is what we want to encourage.
Prof, you talked about governance. Well, there's a land tenure. Most of these areas that we're talking about, the arid and semi-arid lands, it's community land.
Yes.
So it's about community leadership.
Yes.
But also it's about government.
Yes.
And many of the things that I hear you say, I mean, we talk about this all the time on the show. Carl Rowe and the good work that he does, university researchers and all the work that has been done. You stand anywhere in the world, Prof, and people stand up and they're like, yes, we know we have Professor Jesse from Kenya. He's actually coming. Locally, what makes it so difficult to implement some of these things? Because I think, from just listening, simply because the land is actually communal, it would even be easier to manage it, as opposed to it being owned by individuals.
Meaning small
pieces.
Small scale holders, yes.
Well, I think we have made a lot of progress. With the devolution, we have now counties that are responsible for that type of intervention or uptake of that technology. But of course, they have many, many priorities now. Some of the agricultural priorities are not on their desk so much. There is also the problem of, I think there's one thing to discover something in a laboratory or your research. It's another thing to upscale it. The process of upscaling is not that easy. And we take it for granted.
And it requires often collaboration.
It requires a lot of investment.
Yes.
And as you say, you see, in Kenya we have passed what we are calling Community Land Act, which now gives the county governments and the communities to define the jurisdiction of their area, so that if they want to improve that area, they have the legal framework to do it. And we have cooperative systems. Cooperative systems, they have worked for coffee, they have worked for other producers. Why can't we have cooperatives in those areas to produce what we need in other areas, and we do it with the best technology? Because we can mechanize, we have the seeds. Do you know a kilo of that buffalo grass I'm talking about? It's about 400-500 shillings a kilo.
Grass?
Just seeds, because we want to do the restoration, to expand those areas that are degraded. We want to reclaim them.
Okay, then I have to ask Dr. Miano, Dr. Miano, why then does it seem that it is so difficult? I mean, just coming off of that question, we have again, the greatest minds are here. The land, clearly as a resource, is here. The basic minimum in terms of the grasslands, the rangelands, are available here. What would you say then is the missing link between the availability, the mines obviously that you have as a resource, and then the output, which is what we are looking for? What stops this then from being a thing whereby the end product is developed here and the end product is what is being sent out, as opposed to the input being sent out and then an end product being re-imported?
I think a number of things come into mind. And the first thing is we must look at collaboration and partnership positively. But as we look at partnership and collaboration, then we must have safeguards that then protect our natural resource and define how we share these resources with others. I think that is key, and it's something that we need to work on, and partnerships like we are having with the Congress now help us do that. Now, in terms of investments that we need to transform some of the areas that we are working on, a lot of these things are already happening. As Professor Njoka said, we are already into a system where the dry areas are producing products that then go into the production hub for dairy, for beef. And this is the system that we need to look at. What do we have advantage to produce in a certain area that is then required in another area? And that area does not only define the country, but also our neighboring countries and other regions that might need our product. As Professor Njoka said, seed, grass seed has become one of the major products coming out of the dry areas. And I can assure you, we have seed being ordered from Makueni to Somalia to Sudan to other places in the country. So we are working on these issues. Yes, it takes time, but there are many things that are happening right now. Commercialization of our products has been a bit of a problem. But now, we are already working on some of the products, and that's where you can export seed to Somalia and other places.
Dr. Miano, allow me to just cut you short here. I'm hearing what you're saying, and much of what you're saying is what you would say on a daily basis. I mean, we have the potential for all these things. And then also, I'm sure 15 years ago, somebody would have said, well, there's progress that is being made. However, I'm not satisfied with the progress. Just listening to the example you've given with Makueni. So, Makueni, the government has set aside its own budget, its own resources to support the farmers. Have you had conversations with other governors, and have they taken this up? The example you've given of Makueni farmers are now selling a hay to other farmers in other parts of the country, to other farmers in other parts of Africa. How about the other counties? Nanyuki, Laikipia County, Isiolo County, and the rest?
But in the different projects that we have, we are working with almost, apart from Nairobi and Mombasa, which are defined as non-agricultural counties, we are working with all the other counties, but with specific products that come from those counties. So it's not grasslands everywhere, because other counties might have other advantages.
Yeah.
I can tell you we are working very closely with the county of Kakamega on poultry. We are working with Narok and Kajiado and Taita Taveta on grasses.
Okay.
And the list can continue on and on and on. So there's a lot of work going on. Maybe one of the things we have not done very well is communicated all these activities and what is happening where.
Yeah.
It doesn't really mean nothing is happening. There's a lot happening. But I think communicating some of this information has been an issue.
And also scaling it.
And that's why I'm happy to be in this meeting this morning.
Because, you see, the thing is, Daktari, when people do not know of something as good as this, then it might as well not exist. And what makes it even worse is that because people don't know, and they don't know the great import that this particular discipline has on our livelihood and on our lives on a daily basis. I was talking to Professor Jesse here. There's even a dwindling interest in people taking up these courses in our universities. You actually find the department is getting to a point where it might even shut down. And yet this is at the heart of our very existence.
It's our future that depends on it.
That is true.
Yes.
That's true, and that's why I think Caro now has an agreement with your station to broadcast these things. And that's why we are going into this agreement, because we know there's a lot that people need to know and need to understand why it's happening and how they can link into this.
Indeed. And we thank you very much, Dr. Miano, for even sharing the information that you're sharing here with us today. Dr. David Miano is a researcher with the Kenya Agriculture Livestock Research Organization in the Non-Ruminant Research Center. Dr. Ray Smith is the president of the International Grassland Society and also the president of the Joint International Grassland and Rangeland Congress 2021. Professor Jesse Njoka is associate professor in range management from the University of Nairobi. Thank you very much for joining us. And just give us the date, Prof, as we conclude, the date for this Congress.
Yes, this Congress is taking place from 25th of October to 29th of October. And it is completely virtual.
Okay.
Although the president of the Congress is coming, he's coming here to physically make us work together.
Right.
And there is a lot in the Congress. We have 7 sub-themes. We have a theme on rangeland ecology and management.
We'll have more on these conversations going forward, Prof, as we continue to wait for the Congress to happen. Asanteni sana for joining us. Good morning. It's 8 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning, this is the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga. The COVID pandemic will go on for a year longer than it needs to because poorer countries are not yet getting the vaccines they need. Senior leader at WHO, Dr. Bruce Aylward, said it meant the COVID crisis could easily drag on deep into 2022. He further said less than 5% of Africa's population have been vaccinated compared to 40% on most other continents. The WHO statement comes as Burundi is among the last countries in Africa to receive the first shipment of the COVID-19 vaccine. However, President Uhuru Kenyatta has announced the launch of a vaccine establishment of Kenya Biovax Limited to manufacture COVID-19 vaccines. He said this will end dependence on vaccine donations as the plant will be up and running by Easter next year.
We as a government have established a company to facilitate this venture in the name of Kenya Biovax Limited, and therefore the Ministry of Health should operationalize this company to build a form and fill and eventually manufacture vaccines in our country by Easter of next year.
Bar owners in Kwale County have expressed hope for a boost in their business following the lifting of the night curfew. Led by Timothy Mburu, they've said their businesses have been severely affected since the ban was effected due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Biashara yetu tutafanya mzuri kama chairman na welcome order yake, hata ingawa kiafya tunakuwa sawa lakini kieconomy tunakuwa vibaya.
Mburu also urged residents to continue to adhere to the COVID-19 measures in order to suppress the spread of the virus. He further urged Kenyans to continue to show up in large numbers for the vaccination drive.
Na sasa jukumu iko pande yetu, sababu lazima tujichunge wenyewe, sababu kuondolewa kwa hiyo kafio sio kusema ya kwamba ati corona imeisha. Kwa hivyo iliyobaki ni sisi wenyewe tujichunge, tuchukue ile mielekeo mzuri, watu waoge mikono, chunga kuenda pahali kuna watu wengi na kudungwa shindano, watu wapize hiyo mambo ya kudungwa shindano.
This event comes as various government departments have made confusing statements on whether bar businesses are allowed to operate past 7 p.m. The NPS argued that the lifting of the ban doesn't mean that bars are allowed to operate at night, whereas the Ministry of Tourism said bars could now operate past 7 p.m. However, Health CS Muthui is expected to make a clear statement on the COVID-19 measures. Several Kenyans enjoyed their first night out without having to go home by 7 p.m. after the lifting of the curfew. We hit the streets and a number of them were still in bars drinking, whereas others were running their businesses without fear of being arrested.
Our president has done a great thing. We are very happy as revelers of all bars in Nairobi. The economy is going to increase because the night economy is the greatest thing that has happened to this nation. We are so happy because we are going to drink till morning.
Mimi ni mhudumu wa matatu eneo la Njoro kuelekea hadi Nakuru mpaka Egerton University. Kwanza ninashukuru rais kwa kutuondolea makataa ya kafyu sababu biashara yetu kusema kweli itarudi hali ya kawaida.
Mimi ni mama mboga hapa. Tunashukuru kwa kutupea time tuuze mpaka saa yenye inatakikana. Hapa ni Wasingishu, tunauza mboga, tunang'ang'ana, lakini tumefurahia sana rais wetu kutupea hii muda ya kutafuta pesa.
Meanwhile, Machakos Governor Alfred Muthui has termed the move to end the curfew as a show that Kenyans have reached an age where they are able to self-govern themselves.
I saw a cartoon in one of the papers today that kind of captures part of the mood of the nation in a joking manner, where they have, words that you cannot read, and all the people had was curfew lifted. So that seems to have been the highlight of Mashujaa Day. And it showed that Kenya, we've reached an age whereby tunajitawala na tunajitawala vizuri na maisha yanaendelea, and it cannot be politics all the time. So this is a good celebration of our heroes, and heroes are those people who work hard to get things moving for themselves.
MPs have summoned health stakeholders regarding the detention of patients and bodies by hospitals over medical bills. Health PSs and Muchache, Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Council and managers of referral hospitals will appear before the National Assembly Health Committee to shed light on the matter. The MPs insist that debt can't justify illegal or arbitrary detention of a patient. And in business news, Kenya Airways, Standard Chartered Bank and MultiChoice Kenya are among 160 companies that have been shortlisted for Africa's awards, dubbed the Oscars of the tech world. This marks the completion of the first phase of the technical analysis of data, from which the C100 top companies in Africa will be chosen. The technical team analyzed data of 2021 gathered over the past 3 months. And in international news, India administered 1 billion COVID-19 vaccine doses by early this morning, an important milestone after a slow start, even as a recent drop in inoculations worried the government and healthcare providers. Union Health Minister Mansukh Mandivai appealed to all those who are eligible to get vaccinated against the virus. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
Inbound on Mombasa Road this morning is where we see a lot of the traffic today. We're looking at also some outbound traffic, and that's coming off just around the going past Cabanas towards Imaradima. The construction continues, guys, so a lot of traffic in different parts. Lunga Lunga, Jogo Road, Likoni, that whole circuit. A lot of traffic this morning as well. All right, let's look at Uhuru Highway going into the city. We have a spilling over from Langata Road, Aerodrome Road, coming in from Bunyala Road, and that all joins on Uhuru Highway this morning, going out then towards Haile Selassie. We'll look at the other side of things coming off of Jogo Road and Landis Road. Haile Selassie in and outbound. Quite a lot of traffic as you're getting into the city centre this morning. All right, it was looking better on the Thika Superhighway. What happened? More folks woke up and we have more traffic then spilling over from Outer Ring. Kiambu Road looking a little bit better until you get to Muthaiga Square. Coming off of Limuru Road as well. Quite some traffic getting towards the whole Parklands area out into the city. 8 o'clock, a few minutes after that, we are in the middle of traffic hour. We're likely to see heightened levels of traffic through most of the morning. Let's keep an eye on things and help us out to do so. Be our eyes on the road, guys. Let us know on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room.
It's 8 minutes
the
after
only way
8.
to start
How are
your
you
day.
doing? Very good morning to you. We're still live on KTN Home on SpiceFM and online. SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and www.spicefm.co.ke. It's Thursday, the 21st day of October 2021. And this is the day that Chief Justice Martha Koome has said, on Thursdays, I'd like the country to be focusing on the delivery of justice. So it's hashtag Justice Thursdays. CT Muga has the day's proverb. Make it pretty sure.
Zogolo, kuika, sio dawa ya kucha. I am certain this is not how the Digo would pronounce it. But I'm trying to be safe here because I would not really like to put into practice an affectation of a language that I don't really understand. So let me read it in the way that I would read something in Kiswahili. Zogolo kuika sio dawa ya kucha. Meaning, the cock crowing does not cause the break of dawn.
The cock crowing does not cause the break of dawn.
No, it doesn't. Dawn will break whether the cock crows or not.
It will happen.
Yes.
It will happen. Hashtag Justice Thursdays. And our guest this hour is the Honorable Justice Professor Joel Ngugi. He is a judge of the High Court and presiding judge of the Nakuru High Court. He is also the chairman of the National Steering Committee for the implementation of the Alternative Justice Systems Policy.
It's a mouthful.
I'm done. Chairman.
Go home now.
Your work is done for the day.
Yes. Goodness. It's good to have you in the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Now, CT will ask that question. How should we refer you? How should we call you? Your Honor, Honorable Judge, Professor,
Justice Professor.
And you forgot Baba Kioni. Sylvia's husband. All those are mine.
Okay.
Mtoto wa Mama Lucy. Yes.
Good ones.
Yes.
Good ones, Prof. You recently moved now to the Nakuru station.
Yes.
How are you finding Nakuru?
Nakuru is great. It's not that recent, actually. It's already 3 years since I moved to Nakuru.
Yes.
Nakuru is an up-and-coming city. It has everything that you ask of a city, yet everything you also ask of a more laid-back rural place. So I'm really loving it in Nakuru.
Great.
And it's not too far from Nairobi, so you can still spend your weekends in Nairobi. I'm hoping the Chief Justice is not listening to this. That might provoke her to move me further. She might be thinking I might having too much fun. Yes.
Move you further from here and take you, So recently the Chief Justice rolled out these plans. But even before that, it was a whole conversation about alternative justice systems that are taking place. You chaired the task force that led to the birth of this policy.
Correct.
So tell us about alternative justice systems. What's that all about?
Okay. Thank you. So let me start by saying I think in this country, what we're trying to do now is to change conversations about justice. For a very long time, I would say since the advent of colonialism, we've pursued justice in this disputational mode, in this adversarial mode, which we were taught and which we then sort of became very good at, and it superimposed our systems, our organic systems, which still exist. But when we talk about justice today, we still think of justice in that adversarial disputational mode. And we think that is a very unnatural way, a very inorganic way to think about justice. And we think a lot of the problems that we see in the justice system are caused by this way of thinking about justice. So the aim here is to try and bring back our organic plural systems of justice that have existed since time immemorial, that are more natural to our people, and I believe that lead to better justice. We say to Kenyans, when you think about health, your health, you don't necessarily think about hospital. In fact, you think about hospital when you are unhealthy.
Yep.
But when we think about justice in Kenya, we think about the court.
Yes.
It should be the other way around.
And jail.
Yes, and jail. And that's not justice. I think we need to be thinking about justice in the same way that we think about health. We don't go to the hospital to get health. We get our health in our own homes, in our own communities, in what we eat, in what we do every day. And that has to be about justice. So justice has to be palliative. And that's what alternative justice systems is, and that's what we want to take back most of the cases, most of our conversations about justice, and I believe we'll have a much better society if we go there.
Do I almost hear you saying, Prof, then that you need to include community in this justice seeking or justice making? Because that would mean when you're looking at health, then you're looking at the things that you eat every day, you're looking at the exercise you do every day. So if you're looking at justice, the communities that you interact with on a daily basis to make sure that things are, at least at a rumble level. Is that what you're saying? Bringing traditional communities
Absolutely,
to be able to
Absolutely. That's what we're saying. And luckily for us, it's not just us saying. Constitution of Kenya 2010, in its genius, said it already. So in Article 159, actually starting with Article 2, even in delegating judicial power to the judiciary, it's very clear that the people remain sovereign, even in the justice sector. And then in Article 159, it still comes back and tells us that we must promote alternative justice systems as perhaps the most superior way of resolving some kinds of disputes, perhaps most kinds of disputes. So yes, it's a question of going back to the communities, promoting their own systems of justice, promoting their own conversations about justice. That's what this is all about.
But then communities are different.
Yes.
That means that one community's approach and conversations around justice may not be necessarily the same in another community. So does it mean that also looking at each community handling its justice its own way, or should there be a common thread?
Getting right to the depth of it, Eric. Yes. So two things. So first of all, in Kenya today, when we talk about alternative justice systems, we are not necessarily talking about my grandfather's, your grandmother's African customary law necessarily. So one of the things that we realize is that a lot of the justice that is practiced every day, the quotidian justice in the community, even in communities that we might think people of the same community live. So if you go to deep in Il Kaputei in Masai, and you think there are only Masai people there, you will find that a lot of the time when they are speaking, they're having conversations about justice today, you will find that it's infused with a lot of ideas about human rights, a lot of ideas about that's already in statute law, a lot of ideas borrowed from the Kambas, and so forth. So that customary law has really grown. So when we talk about alternative justice system today, we're not necessarily talking about it in its anthropological sense. We are saying about systems of justice that are organic, that reside in the communities. Sometimes they use some African customary law that has already been infused with modern notions of law or human rights or constitutional norms and so forth. And sometimes they just use common sense. Sometimes they just use logic and so forth. So the notion of alternative justice systems that we are deploying now, and as it's comprehended in the judiciary policy on alternative justice systems, basically comprehends all those forms of alternative justice system. If a certain group of people prefer to have their own AJS mechanism that binds them because of their anthropological lineage, so be it. The Constitution allows it. But if they also come together because they live in a neighborhood and they decide that we're going to be resolving our disputes this way in this neighborhood, that's also allowed. If they decide they're going to be resolving their disputes in a particular way because they belong to a particular church, that's also allowed. And the Constitution in Article 159 tells us promote all those forms. The only proviso that the Constitution gives us is that all those alternative justice systems, both in their processes and in their outcomes, must be undergirded by constitutional values in the first place, and in the second place, they cannot violate the Bill of Rights. So the Bill of Rights is supreme, and it is the basic minimum that you are asking. That's the basic minimum, both in terms of substance, but also in terms of process. If it meets those standards, then we as a judiciary, we have an obligation to promote those justice systems and enforce any awards that they come up with.
And if it doesn't?
If it doesn't, then that's why the role of the judiciary in Article 159 is to promote. So promote is human rights lingua. It means at least three things. It means, number one, you respect where they promote the norms of the Constitution and the values of the Constitution. But it also means that you protect. So you protect the victims where they do not. So where they do not comply with the constitutional values, then that's where the judiciary, in its interaction with those forms of alternative justice systems, can say the outcome here does not comport with the values of the Constitution, so it will not be enforced.
What role does the judiciary play in the structuring of the individuals who will play this particular role in the communities?
Okay. Thank you, Muga. So this was almost rehearsed because I talked about human rights lingua and I was unbundling what promoting means. And I talked about respecting, I talked about protecting, and your question takes me to the third aspect of promoting, and that is transforming. So one of the roles of the judiciary is also to transform those alternative justice systems. So it's not just to accept them as they are, but to infuse the human rights language, human rights norms, the expanding norms of human rights and the expanding corpus of human rights worldwide, globally, are supposed to be infused in these alternative justice systems in the interactions that the judiciary has in them. So the role of the judiciary, as we see it and as we've interpreted it, means, one, to come up with a policy that guides these alternative justice systems. That's why we have the alternative justice systems policy. It provides some basic guidelines on some of the basic minimums that they should meet. But also, the policy provides for an approach, a pedagogical approach that is really didactic of engagement with these mechanisms, so that in the engagement there is cross-learning. There's a lot that we can learn from these alternative justice systems in our formal court systems. So we learn from them, even as we teach them some of the basic minimums that we know from the Constitution, so that in that cross-learning, we transform each other. We transform the systems as they transform us. Because nobody said that we are the gurus of justice.
Let me expand on this.
Yes.
The alternate justice system
that
one considers, well, I consider and I know is structured, say, the arbitration, mediation. However, for the longest time in community settings, the chiefs, the elders, these were the pillars of this particular system. Now, why I asked about the judicial participation in this is there not a need for some of these individuals to be trained, to get additional training so that they are grounded in some of these things which are nuanced in the Constitution, stated and understood by those who are in the judiciary, so that the issue of a diversion from what the Constitution seeks to pursue and entrench is minimized?
Yes. Yes, you're absolutely right. The word you use is train. In Paul Freire's tradition, I do not necessarily call it training because I see that as very sort of top-down. I see it as engagement. That's what I call didactic engagement. So I'm borrowing from the pedagogy of the oppressed. I mean, so this is bottom up, right? So what we don't necessarily say that we go and train. We go and say we engage with them. We engage with them so that in the engagement they get to learn, as we get to learn. There is a lot that they'll teach us, even as we teach them about the constitutional values. So it is about the engagement. And yes, the policy is all about engagement. It's about engaging with them, getting to know what is it that they do, what are the social societal problems that they're dealing with? How are they transforming them into legal problems? And then how are they resolving those legal problems? And then perhaps suggesting some of the creative solutions that come out of the Constitution. And through this engagement, Muga, we've already been able to make a lot of headways in a lot of places. So if you go to, we just launched the AJS model in Kajiado. And you might imagine, for example, the Maasai would be a very patriarchal society. They would be very opposed to the idea of having female elders.
They'd be traditional.
And so forth. And you would be surprised that one of the things that they were very, very open to is the idea that, yes, females can be elders. Yes, the youth can be elders, and so forth. So if you watched...
Actually, Judge,
yes,
let's,
please.
let's just do this.
Yes.
Give us that example
yes.
of the one that you launched in Kajiado.
Yes.
So what is it? For people who just... Okay, so we're hearing alternative justice system. What is it that you launched in Kajiado? Is it a court? Is it a council of elders? What is it?
Very good. Thank you. What we launched in Kajiado was a model of an AJS system that is homegrown in Kajiado. It is it's spearheaded by 5 agencies, but I would say the author of the model is the county government. So the county government of Kajiado is worried about economic development in Kajiado. And one of the things that hampers economic development is in Kajiado is the land disputes that affect Kajiado because of its proximity to Nairobi metropolis, but also because of the historical immigration into Kajiado. I'm from Kajiado County myself, born and bred. My parents went to Kajiado back in the 60s. So there are a lot of immigrants in Kajiado who have bought land from the Maasai people who traditionally have been pastoralists. A lot of the immigrants practice sedentary agriculture and so forth. So there have been disputes which have hampered economic development. So the county government realized that if we're going to move social development to the next level in this county, we need to resolve these disputes, and courts are not the way to go because you will bog down the courts. These things will remain there forever, and even when those issues go to court, sometimes they'll go to court and the court will come up with its judgments and rulings and so forth, but enforcing them socially becomes very problematic.
Right.
So they decided, I think the way to do this is, why don't we revivify traditional ways of resolving these disputes? And when they say traditional, they don't even mean Maasai, they just mean African. There is something that's so common about how Africans talk about justice and talk with each other or have conversations about justice with each other. So what they decided to do was to go the traditional route of saying in Kajiado there are 11 sub-tribes of the Maasai. They are called sections. I don't know if you knew, but the Maasais actually have sub-tribes. They're called Iloshon in among the Maasai. And so they decided they'll have 9 sections for each of the Maasai sections to resolve some of those disputes that come within those sections. And then they will have one cosmopolitan one, which is mainly found in Ngong, where it's very, very cosmopolitan. And a lot of the land disputes that will be emanating in those places will be resolved by the elders. So they carried out an exercise of recruiting elders, panels of elders in each of these 10 sections. This exercise, we supported the exercise with technical expertise, but it's supported by the Food and Agriculture Organization, which of course is interested in the question of food security, which is also hampered by the disputes to land. It is also supported by the National Land Commission, which has a constitutional mandate to resolve land conflicts before they come to court. And then, of course, the judiciary, which is interested in not having these cases come and bogus in court. So what we were launching in Kajiado on Friday was these homegrown, autochthonous dispute resolution mechanisms where they will resolve their own disputes. And where the court comes in, the court has come in Kajiado through the Court Users Committee, where the court is basically pledging, if you go and resolve your disputes there, we will respect the outcomes of those disputes. When they come to court, we will not relitigate them. We will just check for procedural propriety to make sure that the constitutional norms of procedure have been met. We will also check for what we call proportionality. Proportionality analysis is just to say, have the substantive norms of the Constitution been adhered to?
Okay.
And if those two are checked, then we will just enforce the award as it is. We not litigate.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's take a break.
Yes.
And then we come back and you give us a little bit more about this. We have in studio with us the Honorable Justice Professor Joel Ngoge, Judge of the High Court of Kenya, presiding judge of the High Court in Nakuru, and also the chairman of the National Steering Committee for the implementation of the Alternative Justice Systems Policy. Now I can say it now because I understand what we're talking about. Right? We are live on KTN Home, on SpiceFM and online. Let's continue this conversation after we take a look at how the roads are looking like this morning and also the weather forecast for the country and the rest of the world. Good morning.
From 2019, she has stayed with 6 different people. You know, we are saving money. There's no need for him to be renting in this side.
And I'm renting this side.
No.
Yeah.
And sometimes this is an avenue for women to con men. Let me just be very honest with you people. Today we are talking about performing marriage duties while you're still dating. Why are you paying rent and this is not your wife?
Yo.
We need to start holding each other accountable. For those people who are dating, learn to buy your own bed.
The only way to live your best life is to create a balance between work, love, and play. The Adults in the Room is the only show on radio dedicated to educating Kenyans on how they can stay winning in life and in love. Text the word adult to 22840 to get the latest clips from Adults in the Room directly to your mobile phone. SMS adults to 22840.
If I'm found guilty, there is no problem. I'm willing to serve. I have no problem. Jails are meant for human beings.
They say a society gets the leadership it deserves. If you have a corrupt, crooked and rotten society like we have in Kenya, then of course they will get that kind of a leadership.
I think the president should dissolve parliament. That's the best solution at this moment in time. Dissolve parliament.
All of you go home.
Yes, we all go home.
How are we encouraging other people who might have new and creative ideas? Young people who are making money without any government help. They are just buying their own bundles. They are going on TikTok and making money. KRA is coming after them.
I've been in parliament for 15 years. We have been unable to pass the gender law. And yet no presidential candidate is talking about it now. Because we are fake. The truth is, all the men refuse to vote for that law.
What did Sonko do to Pumwani Maternity Hospital?
Yeah, he
with
cleaned
his
it up.
own money.
Cleaned it with his own money. That was him as an individual.
Yeah. And I did not say he was cleaning his own money. I was saying he cleaned it.
Foot, mouth. Foot, mouth. Eric.
Okay.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
It's cloudy in Nairobi at 17, highs of 24 and lows of 14, while at 16 degrees in Nakuru will be sunny for most of today, highs of 26 and lows of 15. 14 is the low in Nyeri, rain showers at 15 going to highs of 22. We're looking at cloudy conditions in Eldoret, highs of 23 and lows of 13. In Mombasa today, light rain continues, highs of 30 and lows of 24, while in Malindi it's raining as well at 28. It'll go to highs of 30 and lows of 25. Kisumu, partly sunny at 21, highs of 28 and lows of 20, while in Kakamega it's partly sunny at 21, highs of 29 and lows of 15. In Kampala, heavy thunderstorms continue for day 2 at 20, highs of 26 and lows of 18, while it's raining in Dar es Salaam at 26. It'll go to highs of 31 and lows of 23. Johannesburg is sunny at 14, highs of 24. Lagos is raining at 26, highs of 30 and lows of 24. While in Kinshasa, it's mostly sunny at 23. We'll see highs of 31 and lows of 22.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
All roads lead to the city this morning and everything seems to be jam-packed. Uhuru Highway bearing the brunt of most of the traffic this morning. We have it feeding off of, coming out of industrial area, coming off of Ngong Road, coming off of Langata Road before that. But Gavi Way is not looking too bad. There's your escape route, all free and clear this morning, so use that. But then you get to Ngong Road at the City Mortuary roundabout and you will be stuck. Then getting towards the city from different parts is slow this morning. Also looking at heightened levels of traffic on the Thika Superhighway. That is just not letting up this morning. So it's going to take some patience and maybe a song on the radio. Coming off of Kiambu Road as well, looking slow towards the Muthui Square. In the middle of traffic hour, take time to get out of this one, but not too bad right now. Let's talk in a bit. SpiceFM KE on Twitter in the meantime. Text 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice
This is
FM.
Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room on Spice FM, online and on KTN Home. In the room this and every weekday morning is Ndu Okoh, CT Muga, and Eric Latiff. Joining us today this hour is the Honourable Justice Professor Joel Ngugi, Judge of the High Court and also Chairman of the National Steering Committee for Implementation of the Alternative Justice Systems Policy. As we're going to the break, Judge, you're explaining to us what, for example, was launched in Kajiado, which is to be replicated around the country. Maybe you can explain to people, is it this system going to be dealing with both civil and criminal cases, or is there some distinction between there are things that cannot be handled here and others that can? Or because we've had many complaints of unajua walisema hii mambo tutatue kinyumbani. And assuming that is what the alternative justice system is, and in many cases, for example, in Sexual Offences Act, complains that people went to talk kinyumbani and the victim is a child. So how does this work?
Okay. Two very good questions, which I want to just take some time to respond to because they are very crucial. First, what was launched in Kajiado is not really what will be replicated throughout the country. What was launched was the model that Kajiado has chosen, Kajiado County, and has chosen it because of its unique circumstances and where the justice conversations in that county has taken them. And the main issue there is land. That is the main issue. Other counties and other places might choose different ways of addressing what their most important justice conversation is. Okay. For example, in the pilot stage, when we were doing the task force, when we were writing this policy, one of the places we visited was Othaya. And Othaya has a very interesting homegrown AJS system as well, which we studied as a pilot. And there, the main issue was not land. The main issue was Mongiki, actually. It was just these youthful gangs and so forth. But they were showing themselves, they were registering in the criminal, in the justice system as criminal cases. Drunk and disorderly, preparation to commit felony, burglary, just fighting and so forth. But the people in Othaya realized that they are sending most of their young people to prison. And there was a bigger conversation to be had, which could not be laundered using the criminal justice system. So they use the alternative justice system as the way to have that conversation. And Othaya is one of the places where they almost completely eliminated the Mongiki problem. And there were no extrajudicial killings. There were no killings. There was no mob justice. They talked it out using the court users committee as using its convening power. So that was the main problem there. Okay. Kajiado has a different problem. So different places will come up with different models for resolving their disputes. All the judiciary promises in this policy is whatever homegrown system you come up with, whichever kinds of disputes you decide would be cured or will be solved or will be resolved in those mechanisms, we will promote, we will respect, we will protect, and we will help you transform. That is what the policy says. Okay? So now we come to the question, are there some kinds of disputes or controversies that are off limit that will just not be handled there? The answer is yes. But that answer is not answered categorically with a bright line rule. It is answered with a principle. The principle that is applied to determine if a case will be resolved, can be resolved fruitfully in an AJS system or not, does not depend on whether the case is criminal or civil, constitutional or statutory. What it depends on is the application of what we call the agency principle. The agency principle asks the question, can you ask of the two disputants who are approaching the mechanism, can you say that they each credibly, voluntarily, and in the exercise of their own agency, chose to be in that forum? That's the first question. That's a positive test.
Okay.
If you can say that in the exercise of their agency and human autonomy, they credibly and voluntarily chose the AJS system, then you have an obligation, a constitutional obligation, to let them proceed in their case in that forum.
And this is all parties?
All parties. Then secondly, you have to ask the question, is there any statutory or constitutional criteria that ousts the jurisdiction of the AJS mechanism? That's a negative test. If there's a statute that says that case cannot be heard in that forum, then the inquiry ends.
Okay.
But going back to the first one, which is the more complicated one, it's an objective test. It's not a subjective one. So if you come, for example, this is why the cases involving children, for example, will never be heard in the AJS mechanism through the application of the AJS principle. Because there's no way you will be able to say that through the application of the agency principle, that party credibly exercised their agency and they chose that forum. Most cases involving violence against women will also, most times, not be applicable in the AJS system, because if a woman has already been has been assaulted or has undergone violence in a system that might be patriarchal, then you have to do an objective analysis and say, can we really say that this woman has credibly chosen to be in that in that mechanism? So through the application of the agency principle, then we are able to really sieve which are those cases which then can and should be in that system and which ones should not be in that system. It's a really simple mechanism. Of course, hard, complicated in some few cases, but we say in law that hard cases make bad law.
Right.
So we are making cases for the majority of cases.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm looking at a system whereby the police, as a service, play in the expansion of justice, right? So as it is currently constituted, there's a system whereby if a crime has been committed, most likely has been reported to the police then take it on before it finds its way, eventually at the courts, right? Now, looking at AJS, what role, if any, would they play, knowing very well that they must go through the courts? As a service, they have to go through the courts, constituted to do so.
Okay.
Will they play a role in AJS as well?
Yes, very good question. And you would have made a very good student. So I would say this. First of all, if a matter is reported to the police station as a crime, as an incident, there is no requirement that it must end in court. There's no legal requirement that it must end in court. In fact, the police and the prosecutor are one of our foremost targets in the pedagogical engagement I was talking to Muga about, because they make a lot of decisions that have a lot of impact on the justice system. In our own study, we found that, in fact, it's in the police stations where let me say a lot of AJS takes place. Someone reports to court, and we found it's in many cases where people report a matter to court, but not because they want the matter to end up as a criminal case. They report because they want to open avenues of conversation. So they want to use the police as a convening power, as a convening authority, to call the other person and say, why are you doing this? Why did you encroach into my dispute? Why is my son coming home and drunk and threatening to beat me and I'm the father and so forth. They don't want that son to go to prison. Okay? If you're a policeman and you're not well trained, you would think, okay, I'm just going to write up a charge sheet. I will take to the prosecutor. And the prosecutor, again, if they're not well trained, they will think, I'll just sign this and I will take it to court. And then when they come to court, you find the father really pleading. The same complainant is the same father who wants to put bail for the son. And they're saying, you're sending my son to custody, and that's not what I intended. I just intended us to have a conversation. So we are going to be training policemen. We're going to be training chiefs. We're going to be training prosecutors and so forth on really the essence and the essentials of alternative justice systems and really what our criminal justice system should be doing. Our criminal justice system should not be put in motion just because something that is cognizable as a crime has been committed. It is not always the case that it should be. That is why, if you look even at the prosecutor's policy, one of the things they have to use two tests to determine whether to charge or not. It is not just that a crime has been committed. The first question they ask is, first of all, there's evidentiary standard. Do we have the evidence? But the second one is public interest standard. Is it in the public interest for me to use public resources to charge this person and prosecute them? Or are there other mechanisms that can be used to deal with this problem?
You know, from where I sit,
yes,
the judicial system is introducing a brave new world. A good one. But there's a concern.
Yes.
You mentioned in passing, but I'd like to dwell on it a little more. Ensuring that whatever judgment, whatever decision is arrived at is actually implemented. Whether it is at whatever level. Yes. Because one of the problems that we read about, even with court rulings,
enforcement.
That's it.
Yes.
Judgment we hear, lovely. Thereafter.
Yes.
The thing that I find painful,
yes,
most painful, is when people are given compensation through a judgment of court.
Yes.
Years later, it is still a story. Or cases of land disputes.
Yes.
Like, say, the issue of the Solio Ranch. Man, 48 years going, thing is still in court, and you're wondering, people have died. People who started this thing have died.
Yes.
And still, so that we don't go to this history that I'm referring to.
Yes.
What is the judicial system going to do?
Okay. So, Muga, I think you've made one of the most passionate arguments for alternative justice systems.
Yes,
because what you have done here is to say, so if you look at our justice needs survey, which was commissioned by the judiciary, it says that 79% of all disputes that Kenyans had in the last 4 years, 79%, they didn't bring them to court. 79%. They took them somewhere else. Okay, so let me start a step before. So you've had people saying that Kenyans are very litigious people,
yes,
right?
I've heard it.
So we have empirical proof for it. The empirical proof is in the Justice Needs Survey, which says that, so in the last 4 years, 81% of Kenyans who felt aggrieved by a decision or an action of another person decided to take action. 81%. That's an extremely high number. Okay? If you do Tanzania, it will be about 50%. Okay? Wale wengine tu watasema, nimeachia Mungu si adhmani. But in Kenya, 81% decided they are going to do something about it. Okay? So that's why we actually say Kenya is litigious. But most of them did not actually come to court. 79%, again, this is empirical, decided to go somewhere else. They decided to go to Wazee, they decided to go to their pastor, they decided to go to the police, but it didn't end up in court. They decided to go to the chief, they decided to go to their estate association, their clan association, whatever. They decided to go somewhere else. Only 21% ended up in court.
Did you even go to witch doctors?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay.
I'm sure. So only 21% end up in court. The problem of enforcement of judicial decisions that we are talking about are this part of the 21%. And we're already tired about talking about it. It's already exhausting. We're already seeing how much it's eroding the confidence of the public in the court. And that's only the 21%. the research shows that 96% of all decisions that are made outside court in the alternative justice systems are adhered to without the need for any outside enforcement. 96%. So 96% of the 79% who went to other alternative justice systems did not need me to sign an order saying that you must do this. 96% of them did not need to involve a police with a gun to go and enforce that order. They didn't need anyone to go to jail to enforce that order. They just did it. It is self-executing. So if we're going to really have an optimal use of our scarce resources that are being directed to the justice sector, then this is really the way to go. Then we can really focus on the 21%, which, by the way, is already too much for the judiciary. If you look at the 21%, last year we're talking about a total of 484,000 cases filed in court. 484,000 cases translates to about 800 cases per year per judicial officer in Kenya today. It's impossible for a judicial officer to complete these 800 cases anyway, even in a year. So the backlog is likely to continue rising unless we do something about it. And so we need to reduce the number of cases through these conversations that is palliative, this conversation that diverts cases to really that fits the fast to the forum, to the correct forum, so that the few cases that then end up in court, we can spend the appropriate amount of time dealing with them. And then we can pursue those who disobey court orders with singular vehemence.
Right.
Yes.
So before you go to that, which I know Eric wants to jump on in terms of those who disobey court orders, the very quick one, you talked about limited resources. And so obviously it's a thing.
Yes.
So now if we're looking at AJS going to traditional community leaders and elders and such, will there be compensation for them? Because that means that now, some of the time is going to be taken up in sorting out this. Will there be compensation for them? And then who's to ensure that they will do this in record time and make sure that these cases are dealt with so that we don't go back into the same rut that you've talked about of time being sapped?
Right. So two things. So first of all, the approach we've taken now is that if something is not broken, don't fix it. Okay? So 79% of these cases are already being heard and determined effectively in the AJS system. Okay? Why would we want to fix that? It's not broken. It's working. Fixing that means we start going and then telling them, hey, you've been deciding these cases now. What do you think about us paying you for resolving them? We don't have the money to pay them. They're already doing it. They're doing it as a sense of responsibility. People do this all the time. So we're just encouraging people to do it. And what we want to give them is that civic sense of pride in doing what they do, that they know that they are participants in the justice in the justice sector, and that what they are doing matters. I think that is more than they want. And when we've talked with them everywhere in the country where we've gone, they're quite happy to continue doing it. They need some of them ask for very basic facilitation. They need places to buy, they need money to buy just a book where they record the cases that they've had, and pens and so forth. And some of them are in the structured mechanisms, like in Kajiado, they would need a fare, bus fare, to go to the venue.
Sure.
And so those are being organized in different settings and so forth. But the judiciary is not saying we have this ton of money which is available to give to the alternative justice systems. We are saying, please come up with your own justice systems that work, that you are proud of, and we will promote them, and we will respect the outcomes of those justice systems.
There's something you mentioned, Justice Ngoge, and this was about the backlog. So this 24% that end up in court.
21%.
21% that end up in court.
Yes.
And we still complain about backlog.
Yes.
You participated in conversations about the active case management.
Correct.
So first of all, what's the cause of the backlog, and what are you currently doing to address this, to make sure that once I get into the system, I call it the system.
Yes.
Once I'm arrested, and then your case has gone to prosecutor, and I'm brought before a magistrate,
yes,
I am in the system.
Yes.
And the community has already judged me, and everybody has, are these guys in court?
Yes.
How long should it take for me to get out of this system?
And there's no exit.
Get my justice.
Very good question. let me answer that question in two ways. So first of all, let me say, I believe we need to reduce the 21% that's coming into court because that's already overwhelming the court system. So right now there is a backlog from the last SOJA report by the judiciary. Our backlog stands at 617,000 cases, roughly. Okay,
how many?
617,000. That's the last SOJA. Okay, and I said every year, last year, we had 494,000 cases filed. So you can expect every year the cases will continue increasing, not reducing. The only dip we've seen was last year because of COVID. So COVID had at least one positive externality. But we expect in the future, those cases will keep rising, not reducing. And given the number of magistrates and judges we have, it's a finite number. We have about 600. So if you divide 484 to 600, you get about 800 cases. They can't finish those 800 cases. So there is a need, first of all, to reduce. The conversation we're having about AJS is one way to reduce even the number of cases that are coming to courts, because we can't keep doing the same things and then expecting different results. But secondly, of course, we also need an increase in the number of magistrates and judges. That's a conversation I know JSC is pursuing with the executive. That's definitely needed, especially given where we are going. But thirdly, to return to the point that you brought, is we also must change how we do things as a judiciary. So this is a conversation we have been having for some time now, but we are now reaching the peak of that. And I see that the Honorable Chief Justice Martha Koome has now made it one of her pillars of her blueprint. We must change our work methods. That is what active case management is. We must train our judicial officers in how they manage the cases that come before them, how they move them forward, how they manage their dockets, and so forth. We must change our systems of accountability. We've gone so far in Kenya. I think we really are leading globally in terms of just accountability for judges and magistrates, in terms of our collecting our statistics, in terms of performance management, in terms of accountability that we have in place. Now the next step is to holding judicial officers accountable for their docket. So that once you've been given a case, and we are 4 in a station, you don't just say, hey, hii file ni kubwa, hii ya Muga ni kubwa sana. So what I will do is I'll just make sure it doesn't proceed today so that next week it will go before Ndu. And then she can deal with the mess. So I look for every reason to adjourn. And of course, there will always be one lawyer who wants a case adjourned. Yeah. Right? So then I will quickly acquiesce to the adjournment so that next week I make sure that it doesn't come back to me. It goes to Ndu, then who has to deal with it and so forth. So now some of the changes we are making, and in Nakuru, these are changes we've already established. They have been in place for the last 2 years. Once a case comes in, it's randomly allocated to a judicial officer. It's yours. It's your baby. Ukue mgonjwa, uadjourn, uende wapi, urudi, unaikuta. Okay,
what if you're transferred?
Now, and until you transferred, but remember, there is now the system of performance evaluation. You are reporting your numbers. You're reporting your numbers. The Chief Justice is looking at your numbers. The Chief Justice has a place where she's saying, how many cases has Justice Ngugi decided this month? So with that pressure, and with all those cases coming to individuals, and you're individually responsible for them, I believe we're going to see a lot of changes. Sure. Yes.
You know, there's a discussion about the other agencies within government that are part and parcel of this system. Okay?
Yes.
So much as we talk about the judicial system and what they need to do, there's certain things that are beyond them.
Yes.
What conversations do you think you ought to have with other agencies so that in reality, from their end, that particular burden is also reduced?
Absolutely. That's a very good question that you've asked, because the justice system is as weak or as strong as the justice chain. And the justice chain, especially in criminal justice, is very long. It starts with the investigator, it starts with the police, the investigators, the prosecutors, the prisons, the lawyers, to the judicial officer. So there are very high level conversations. The conversations are taking place at 2 different places. At the highest level of policy making, there is a National Council for the Administration of Justice, chaired by the Honorable Chief Justice. That is where a lot of the policy issues that affect the different agencies take place. And then at the local level, we have the court users committees. Court users committees are a cascaded replication of the National Council for Administration of Justice, both at the county level. So at the county level, as a presiding judge, I chair the county CUC, which again brings the heads of agencies of the different stakeholders in the justice system. And then you go down lower to the magistrates courts level. There is also now the magistrates courts users committees, which again brings together stakeholders at that level. So those conversations are taking place at those two levels, and what emerges from the magistrate CUCs comes to the county CUCs, then we cascade them up to the National Council for the Administration of Justice. So that when we are engaging constructively in that manner, then we can be able to systematically see where the bottlenecks are, and then policies can be fashioned and crafted at the National Council for the Administration of Justice, and then cascaded back down to the CUCs.
Justice Ngugi, thank you very much for joining us today. Justice Professor Joel Ngugi is a judge of the High Court of Kenya. He's a presiding judge in the Nakuru High Court. And recently, during the review of the Judicial Performance Review, your station was voted the best, was found to be the best. Congratulations, Judge.
Thank you.
Congratulations, you and your team at the Nakuru station. Good stuff that you're doing there. And thank you for joining us. Come again soon.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
We like having these conversations, talking about judiciary Thursdays. That's what Chief Justice Martha Koome said. On Thursdays, Kenyans would like us to have a conversation about justice. And we said, yeah, that's a good thing, because we'd like to have a conversation about justice, how we can access justice better, how we can make sure that cases are speeded up, how we can remove the backlog from the courts. And today's conversation was about alternative justice systems. Justice Ngugi, sema kwaheri, ambia wananchi wa Kenya kwaheri.
Asanteni, kwaherini. Thank you for talking to me about justice. We hope to see you in a place near you to talk about alternative justice systems and changing the conversation about justice in Kenya.
Indeed. We've been live on KTN Home since 7 a.m. It's now coming up to 9. The conversation continues on SpiceFM. A very good morning to you.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
High Court Judge Joel Ngugi has said the alternative justice system that was launched yesterday in Kajiado County by CJ Martha Koome will change the conversation about justice. Ngugi, while being interviewed on SpiceFM Situation Room, said the model aimed at reducing case backlogs will allow Council of Elders and religious leaders play a bigger role in the justice system without contravening the Constitution.
When we talk about justice today, we still think of justice in that adversarial disputational mode. And we think that is a very unnatural way to think about justice. And we think a lot of the problems that we see in the justice system are caused by this way of thinking about justice. So the aim here is to try and bring back our organic, plural systems of justice that have existed since time immemorial, that are more natural to our people, and I believe that lead to better justice.
He further said that it was a matter of going back to the community and promoting their way of justice. He said the SJ would use systems of justice that are infused with ideas about human rights as well as statute law.
So yes, it's a question of going back to the communities, promoting their own systems of justice, promoting their own conversations about justice. So when we talk about alternative justice system today, we're not necessarily talking about it in its anthropological sense. We are saying about systems of justice that are organic, that reside in the communities. Sometimes they use some African customary law that has already been infused with modern notions of law or human rights or constitutional norms and so forth. And sometimes they just use common sense. Sometimes they just use logic.
Learning operations have been disrupted at Taita Taveta University after all staff, including lecturers and non-teaching staff, took to the streets. The lecturers who had threatened to go on strike demanding implementation of their CBA. The lecturers say the university had also ignored a court order to increase their pay. The Kenyan government has failed to fulfill its pledge to support health workers fighting COVID-19, exposing them to avoidable risks of trauma, infection, and even death. Human Rights Watch says that the government's haphazard and coordinated response has affected the welfare of thousands of health workers and hindered Kenya's ability to provide timely and quality health care during the pandemic. HRW further states that despite significant resources being dedicated to the COVID-19 response, the government failed to provide health workers with adequate protective equipment, testing, or other safety measures to ensure they could safely and effectively respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. Bar owners in Kwale County have expressed hope for a boost in their businesses following the lifting of the night curfew. Led by Timothy Mburu, they've said their businesses have been severely affected since the ban was effected due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Biashara yetu tutafanya mzuri
kama chairman na welcome order yake, hata ingawa kiafya tunakuwa sawa, lakini kieconomy tunakuwa vibaya.
Mburu also urged residents to continue to adhere to the COVID-19 measures in order to suppress the spread of the virus.
Na sasa jukumu iko pande yetu, sababu lazima tujichunge wenyewe, sababu kuondolewa kwa hiyo kafyu sio kusema ya kwamba ati corona imeisha. Kwa hivyo iliyobaki ni sisi wenyewe tujichunge, tuchukue ile mielekeo mzuri, watu waoge mikono, chunga kuenda pahali kuna watu wengi na kudungwa shindano, watu wapize hiyo mambo ya kudungwa shindano.
This event comes as Health CS Muthui Kagwe has said that he's going to give a press conference at 3 p.m. today to clarify on the questions relating to the reviewed COVID-19 measures that were announced by President Uhuru Kenyatta yesterday. Police are investigating activist Boniface Mwangi's claims that his house was bombed in Lukenya, Machakos County. National Police Service spokesperson Bruno Shioso says officers are on their way to Lukenya property to check the claims. In a series of Twitter posts, Mwangi claimed that his house that was under construction was bombed by unknown people. Mwangi says the house was destroyed after unknown people attacked it and robbed his workers who were present. The workers say the attackers also shot at the scene, but no one was injured. And finally, former US President Donald Trump has announced plans to launch a new social media network called Truth Social. He said the platform would stand up to the tyranny of big tech, accusing them of silencing opposing voices in the UK. Trump Media and Technology Group, which he chairs, also intends to launch a subscription video on demand service. Mr. Trump was banned from social networks like Twitter and Facebook after crowds of his supporters stormed the US Capitol in January. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
Still continues hot on Uhuru Highway this morning into the city, and some parts out of the city. It doesn't look pretty good still right now. So if you're planning on using Uhuru Highway this morning, do not. Find an alternate route. You can use the Southern Bypass going the long way round then into the city. It'll get you there quicker. We have traffic feeding into Uhuru Highway, then coming off Ngong Road, coming off Kamkunji, coming off Aerodrome, everything feeding into that. So out is best, and that's for this morning for sure. Thika Superhighway has not let up, not yet at least, as well as Kiambu Road. Still some traffic there getting into the city. Coming out of Westlands as well, the folks who went off Waiaki Way and used the Red Hill Link Road were the ones who got it right this morning. You're sticking on Waiaki Way this morning might have a problem. Less cars is better, that's for sure. Okay, traffic hour is going to end a bit later today. That's evident from what we are seeing. Let's talk in about half an hour and see what it looks like. Hope you're safe though. SpiceFM KE on Twitter, text 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room.
7 minutes after
the
9.
only
How
way
are
to
you doing? Welcome to the final hour of today's show. This is the first day of the new year. Year after curfew. 21st day of October 2021, and CT Muga has the day's proverb.
Zogolo kuika sio dawa ya kucha.
Zogolo kuika
sio dawa ya kucha.
Sio dawa ya kucha.
The cock crowing doesn't cause the break of dawn.
There's somebody who said she's Digo and she likes. Just scroll down the mentions. You saw that?
I did, actually.
I think it's above that somewhere. Let's look for that. There you go.
Binti Kombo. Mwalimu, you are safe. I'm a Digo, and I'm happy the way you read the Medali.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do you remember the way you read the Medali?
Yes, I do. I can even repeat it.
Repeat it.
When I'm those like things, I'm invigorated.
Voilà.
Zogolo kwika sio dawa ya kucha.
Yes.
Okay.
Spoken like a true Digo. Elder. Chairman of the AJS.
Village Council.
Village Council. Yes. Somewhere in Kwale County.
You know, the task that the judicial system has on its hands, onerous, but my friend, it's a worthwhile task because this is something that not can actually work. It has been working all along. But it's been working like, should we say, a distant cousin of the judicial system. So you sort of like, you can shout and say, we are related, but as we say in Kiswahili, ni yako. But now, there's a warm embrace of that system coming and saying, no, we really are related.
Yeah.
You're actually not even a distant cousin.
And you will play your part in this family.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And we would like you to continue playing it because we consider that role that you have as important.
As a big one. Indeed.
Remember, this is a role that other ministries like the Ministry of Health ought to embrace also. Because when you talk about a health system, and you're talking about an alternate health system, you must talk about an alternate health system because prior to what we now consider as basic, there have been other health practitioners, call them traditional health practitioners, who have played a very important part and a very important role. Now, there's need to embrace these people and to understand the role that they can play in providing what we refer to as that preventative aspect of healthcare. Yes. Traditional birth attendants exist. There are many parts of the country where they've been embraced. But now, think of other alternative. I know that the Kenya Medical Research Institute actually has an entire center that deals with traditional medicine. An entire center. Which means they long understood the role that traditional health care
plays.
Yes. Yes.
They got it.
They ought to. They ought to.
Yeah.
Yes.
So President Uhuru Kenyatta yesterday addressed the nation from, what did we call that place? Wanguru, I saw it was international. Wanguru International Stadium.
Yes.
In Kirinyaga
International.
County. Wanguru is an international stadium.
For those who didn't know.
For those who didn't know.
Like myself.
With a seating capacity of 10,000 people.
Hey, that's serious, by the way.
And 3,000 were in the stadium as the president spoke.
So that you had good social distancing.
Yes. He said very many things in his speech. Nowadays, the president's speech is every time, it's at least an hour long. Man. Hey. By the time he's finishing, even he can't remember what he started
in the beginning.
Niliwasalimia, by the way. So among the things that the president said was, of course, he finished with his curfew lifted.
That's all folks said.
There's some confusion though. Curfew lifted, but
however,
are bars operating? Are they not? After 7 p.m., police were out there saying, okay, bars. That matter is to be clarified by the health CS today. He called on Kenyans to protect our territorial sovereignty. You know, our dispute with Somalia over our maritime border. He talked about So far, 5 million Kenyans have been vaccinated. And you said the figures from the... It's 4.6. 400,000 people is just, it's a round off.
400,000 is the number of cases that
400,000 people just to the nearest million. 5 million have been vaccinated.
Right.
2/3 gatherings in religious institutions, up from a third. He says, the Kenya Meat Commission got out of debt. He talks about the things that now are going to happen, 13 key interventions that he announced yesterday in the tea subsector, sugar subsector, coffee subsector, livestock subsector, putting in money into this to, bring them up to speed. Framework to facilitate reduction of cost of animal and chicken feeds. He said we are going to have 3.2 billion shillings taken to construct medical facilities, including 50 new level 3 hospitals. 10 billion shillings for phase 3 of Kazi Mtaani for the Vijanas. We are going to have our own vaccine production facility. We are going to construct 10,000 new classrooms in time for transition from grade 6 to junior high school. 8 billion shillings will come from the National Treasury going straight to a school, a local carpenter there, local fundis will construct a classroom and they'll be paid directly. Okay. And he encouraged MPs to also put in some of their CDF into this worthy cause because we need to expand our education infrastructure. Now, all these conversations that the president was, these things that the president said, people reacted, of course, to the curfew conversation. And then there are those now who are touched. Those who are touched in the tea subsector will be like, okay, some money is going to come and help us get cheaper fertilizer in tea. Additional amount to be allocated to the treasury for factory maintenance and payment of farmers' arrears in the sugar belt. Now, farmers who are owed by the sugar factories are thinking, President amesema tulipwe, pesa ikuje haraka haraka. Repair this machine so that we can take our cane to these factories. 1 billion shillings for interventions in the coffee subsector. We are expecting to see things happening. If we are going to construct 50 level 3 hospitals countrywide, then this also means that local fundis are looking to participate in this.
Sure, you want to get in on this party?
The youth in the country are thinking, there's a new Kazi Mtaani. Okay, so how do I position myself to work and get paid for Kazi Mtaani? The conversation I want us would like to have now is surely all these things that the president has said. What is your reaction to them? What do you feel? What's good? What's bad? What's achievable? What's not achievable realistically? Knowing our history, the history of our government in implementation, how long it takes to actually move things after the president has said, how much we're able to raise in terms of revenue, where is this money going to come from? Do we actually have the money to do these things? 10 billion here, 1 billion there, 8 billion there, 1.5 there, 3.5 there, 1.2.
Total of 26 billion shillings was announced yesterday.
Only. We have a 3 trillion shilling budget.
Which we have not financed. Okay, so 26 billion shillings yesterday. I'm just going to stick on that. Because those are some questions you asked there. Do we actually have the money? Are we going to be able to raise? Is the government going to be able to raise the revenue? From the announcements that were made yesterday, it is National Treasury release. It's not National Treasury look for. No. National Treasury release 8 billion, for example, for the construction of these classrooms and the making sure that the infrastructure then is available to make sure that those students who are transiting then from primary to lower to junior high and then senior high school later, right?
Yeah.
Release money to the sugar subsector, release money to the tea subsector, release money to the coffee, release money to livestock. So the assumption is that it is there. But previously, we've been told that certain things that were supposed to have been rolled out in the country could not happen because what? The coffers of Treasury are close to empty. In as much as such a thing sounds very nice when it comes out, it sounds good, right? Because it would seem as if the economy is going to get a shot in the arm. Several sectors that had been suffering before because they could not get the necessary revenue that they needed to have this done, the funds. But then you ask yourself, hold on a minute. Where is it actually going to come from? On that euphoria, you dance for a few hours, and then you come back to a sinking reality that, wait a minute, it could actually be that in the joy and celebration of Mashujaa Day, these things were said. The reality, though, is that is it available? Come this time next year, we will be asking questions about this 8 billion shillings towards building 10,000 classrooms and where it actually went. This would not be the first time that the president has said something and asked people to enact it, but it has not been done. Even something as simple as a report. A report, some of them we're still waiting for till today. Now, something like this, when we're going across sector, agriculture, education, health, energy, finance, socials in terms of Kazim Tani. Across sector, not just one. All of these things. The question is, and it's very painful that we have to ask, but will they actually be done? Or is it the euphoria of Wangu International Stadium on that day? And something needed to be said. I can see the goodwill behind it, but practically, is there money available? That's the only question I'm going to ask.
When I listened to that speech yesterday, I asked myself, what's the difference between this speech and speeches that the president made last year? When he was announcing the economic stimulus, saying, you know what, okay, so COVID has hit us, now we have to have economic stimulus. So what we are going to do is 10 billion shillings for the elderly and the vulnerable in the community, 10 billion shillings for the youth. We are going to have X billion shillings going to the youth who are in the entertainment industry.
Yes.
We're going to have X 3 billion shillings going to our hospitality. All those things he said. How many billions are going to repair infrastructure, roads and bridges that have been washed away by the floods? X billion shillings going to repair our infrastructure. Did it happen?
Let me ask the question, Eric. Since you've asked the question, let me ask another question. In his speech, did he talk about the promises he had made last year and the ones which they have fulfilled to
Why
date?
should you talk about that?
Okay.
He reviewed and said, our economy has improved. In fact,
during a COVID year.
A COVID year, some stuff has happened. For example, the price of tea increased by 42%.
Didn't it?
Milk farm gate prices increased by from 27
to
bob
40.
to 40 shillings.
Yes.
KMC got out of debt.
That is
the
a good
economy
thing.
rose by 0.3% during the pandemic year. ICU capacity increased from 180 beds countrywide to 651 across the country. The financial stimulus program that was rolled out, it worked. It helped people stay in business.
Okay.
Reducing VAT from 16 to 14% had an impact. He said all these things. He said that is the reason why, for example, our economy was growing, because we stimulated the economy.
Stimulated it. Shot in the arm, much necessary, and then it happened.
I get that. I get that. That's not what I asked.
Okay. CT asked if there
Did he
was
come
a
and say,
revision
last year
of
I
the,
promised 10
and I
billion
have done.
shillings, it went 10 billion shillings. I said we are going to do 6,000 desks. 6,000 desks were delivered and the people have been paid.
Yes.
I said we are going to clear all pending debts to the tune of X. All pending debts to the tune of X have been cleared. And in fact, even any debt since then has already been cleared.
Yes.
Everybody who's supplying now to the government is
okay.
getting paid.
Our books are black.
Now, coming from that, in this year that we're going to, this is what we're going to do. 27, 42, KMC. Now, I would say, good.
But in absence of
we
that,
sorted that one.
Okay.
Music.
Crickets.
Music. So basically, City, you don't have faith that this 27 billion shillings
this isn't
stimulus,
no. This is
interventions.
Eric, this has nothing to do with faith.
It's what?
This has absolutely nothing to do with faith. Faith is a substance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Okay? That's the definition of faith in Hebrews. Okay? The book of Hebrews in the Bible. Okay? This is just a subject of this is what we were told would be done, quantifiable.
Yes.
And a report. Because usually when you say you're going to do something, you give a report.
Indeed.
The things that we said we were going to do in the year this and this and this, when we made a similar speech last year,
this is what we achieved.
This is where we stand. And fellow Kenyans, this is what we have done. This is what we did. This is where we are. And now, in the coming year, having achieved these wonderful things, this is what we are telling you we are now going to do.
Okay, so CT, then let me rephrase the question. Out of the 13 interventions that were announced by the president yesterday, which ones do you think are unlikely to be
And let me just
fulfilled?
remind you of some of those.
Yes.
Is it okay?
Please,
Okay.
please.
Let me start from the one that I like. 8 billion shillings for the CBC infrastructure expansion program, right? Shot in the arm for education.
Construction of 10,000 classrooms.
10,000
with us.
classrooms. I mean, to take away some of this pressure of the transition from primary school to junior secondary and senior secondary. All right? Health. 3.2 billion shillings for the construction of medical facilities, including 50 new level 3 hospitals around the country. I'm not going to give you all of them. I'm just going to give you 4.
Level 3 is dispensaries.
Yeah. The things that you've been talking about, community health workers being able to take treatment to the
Local
community level, right? 10 billion shillings for the third phase. So if it's a third phase, the assumption is that phase 1 and 2 were successful. N'est-ce pas? So for the third phase of Kazim Tani under the National Sanitation Program, I'll give you one more. I won't give you banking because you don't like them. Vaccine production.
Banks. I like banks.
Okay. Coffee subsector. 1 billion for targeted interventions. Which one don't you see happening?
All. None of them is going to happen. And not because they cannot happen. It is because we cannot build on promises that were unfulfilled, promises that had been made and whose details are at best vague, and then we now want to anchor the hope of this coming year yet on even more promises. If you had asked me the question, do I think the government can come up with the money, I would have said yes, they can. They most definitely can. Can the government find the money for this? Yes, they can. The people who are charged with ensuring that these things are implemented, do I think and do I understand that they're able to do it? Yes, they're able to do it. But do I also understand that they're not going to do it? Yes, they will not do it.
Because they don't have it. I from where I'm sitting, I don't think these things will happen because they will not be given the priority. It was a speech on the 20th of October. There were things that were said. There was almost an authority given and said, release this money, get this done. I just don't think it'll be done. I don't think not because there's
You don't think anything will move?
Not because there's
No,
because
there'll be
no
movement.
interest.
No, there'll be a lot of movement.
Not because
this
there's
amount
no
of money.
interest,
Oh,
but
there'll be movement.
because look, we had a situation just a couple of weeks ago when we had a petroleum levy fund whereby they're told this is actually supposed to buffer, subsidize, so that the people of the country do not have to suffer when we see these high fuel prices. What were we told? Oh, you know what?
It was for
that
this
fund, we had used it for something else. And then the Treasury doesn't even bother to come and tell people what was going on. He had to be asked, or actually, National Assembly had to be told by the CS for petroleum that, you know what? You people are asking about why we did not subsidize. There is a fund. And in case you don't know, National Treasury has not given us that money. 1, 2, they should tell us what they did with it. All right. Now, here you are having been told certain things need to happen. Education, tea, coffee, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's nice. President said, Vitu qua ground. Totally different.
Different.
It could be negative for all you know, right here. That account, where all these things are supposed to come from Treasury. That's why I think it's not going to happen. It sounds very nice and puts the country in a euphoric mood because sector's now going to get something. Shot in the arm here, they're going.
You know what I think? What I think is that, one, is there money to actualize these things? Yes.
I think there is money. Will it be prioritized?
Will money be released from the National Treasury to do these things?
Yes.
Will the things be done? No. For instance, this very direct ones, where money is actually coming out of the National Treasury and going where it's going to many people's hands. Kazim Tani, 10 billion shillings. Will it leave the... Yes, it will.
It will leave.
And there will be these sanitation programs. You see, this sanitation program is not even defined. So what is sanitation? It is a community that decides what its sanitation needs are. Dr. Alfred Muthui used part of the projects that were done in Machakos was on road infrastructure. I think in Muranga as well, they constructed some facility and they used the youth and were paid through Kazim Tani. There are some people who use this just to go and sweep markets and you're paid. It is not defined. So money will leave. 10 billion shillings will leave the National Treasury. On paper, it's for Kazi Mtaani, injection and social support program. Some youth will see money, but how they're receiving the money will be a completely different thing. You will be sweeping this market today because there's a political rally that's going to take place today.
Not because the aim is to keep
and
it
then
clean.
you will receive money because you attended the political rally.
And even then, you will not receive all of
Not
the
all
money
the
that
money.
you are promised you will receive.
It's important to note that all of these things are being announced a year before an election.
This is campaign season. This is 10 billion shillings that I see in my head going straight to campaign kitty somewhere. 8 billion shillings for construction of 10,000 classrooms. I think some classrooms will be constructed, about 1,000 or so.
They will not be 10,000.
They will not be 10,000. But on paper, 8 billion shillings will go. There'll be some conflict here between the MPs and CDF and how much, because even MPs will want to spend money into this program. They've been asked by the president to support it.
Yep.
They'll construct some structures and call them classrooms. They'll not have roofs. They'll not have desks. They'll not have windows. They'll not have doors. They'll not be... Some substandard things will be done in the name of new classrooms. 8 billion shillings, the controller of budget will say, yeah, it went. This is money that will leave our coffers. It's not money that's going to achieve all these colorful things that President Uhuru Kenyatta was talking about yesterday.
And the reason is because the people who control it and the people who determine the direction it takes are never brought to book. And yet we know who they are. It's not this money isn't vapor. So that it's released from a tap and you say, it vaporized. It disappeared. Money doesn't disappear. Money doesn't work. Somebody takes it in the direction they want it to go. Money is an inanimate object. It doesn't have a life of its own. Life is injected by the user. So, again, the president is not to be blamed here. Because the president asks for a broad, sweeping understanding of what needs to be done, and there are people who tell him, Mr. President,
CT, you think he doesn't know these things happen?
No.
When he's making, even when he says, okay,
He
people...
knows.
No.
CT.
That is not what I said.
No, I'm asking.
You're saying he's not to be blamed.
He's not to be
That
blamed
is what I said.
He's asked for an analysis report. Tell me what needs to be done and let's make a decision. But it's not the first time he would make a statement like this and say, inject money here, do this. You think he's not aware that this corruption takes place, that this mismanagement of said funds takes place, and then still goes ahead to make the announcement and say, okay, they ate last time. It's okay, let's just
I thought you
give
were
some
going to
more.
ask me why I said he is not to be blamed.
Why is he not to be blamed?
Oh, you've decided to ask me that question
Yes,
now.
I have.
Well, the reason why I think the president is not to be blamed is because this isn't a situation where blame plays any part in this conversation. It isn't blame. What we're looking at is the normalization of this disease that we have. This mental disease that we have acquired for ourselves, we have expanded over time, and we've now normalized. So, if we have a situation where we are unwell, the president is also unwell. Because if the reality of the situation that we have in this country is being addressed by platitudes and promises, and yet we have a genuine, real problem that requires something concrete to be done, and you listen to an entire speech, and with the exception of the lifting of the curfew, and even that has issues, because lifting of curfew, people want to hear, are bars opened 24
That's what
hours.
lifting of curfew means. And can we travel
For many
at night?
people, yes.
Yes.
Can we now go to church? Can we now do the... You just say, it's been lifted.
Yeah.
Yes, lifted with questions. Okay. The lifting of the curfew does not reduce the number of counties that are undergoing drought. It does not reduce the number of people who are going to go hungry today because they don't have food. And neither does it reduce the 2 billion shillings we are told is lost every single day. So, he is not to be blamed.
He is ultimately responsible for the things that he tells the country. He is the president. It's 28 minutes to 10. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Let's take this break. Now, we're asking you, and you can call in and contribute to this. The president announced some raft of measures to be implemented, some 13 key interventions to incentivize our economy to grow. Do you think the president's 13 recovery interventions will be implemented? 0719 012 600 SpiceFM. SpiceFM.ke, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your 24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
And all we're in a society where men have become very lazy. They have made people's daughters become mamafuas. You know mamafua? Yes. That you come to a man's house, maybe you went out or you've come for a weekend. You find all his shirts in his laundry basket.
Yeah.
He was waiting for you to
come and
are
clean
you
them.
his wife? Including his inner garments.
Right, yeah.
Ladies, stop doing that.
Let me
Those
tell
are
you.
wifely duties, and even some wives don't
That's
do them.
literally what I was about to say. I was wondering, there's even some wives who refuse to do that.
The only way to live your best life is to create a balance between work, love, and play. The Adults in the Room is the only show on radio dedicated to educating Kenyans on how they can stay winning in life and in love. Text the word adult to 22840 to get the latest clips from Adults in the Room directly to your mobile phone. SMS adults to 22840.
Forgiveness is always conditional. Even before God, there's nothing like unconditional forgiveness.
Government doesn't pay you pension until you retire. In fact, they have no money for you. The day you retire, they look for it. This country is punishing many young people. These young people are more susceptible to be deceived, to be taken advantage of, and they're more susceptible to be bought off.
Let us also talk about where we want our country to go. We are a population of very young people.
We're in a state of capture. The judiciary is under duress. Parliament is in the pocket of the executive. You don't sit and wait for the regime to topple itself. It will never do so.
By the way, let me tell you, these guys are so persuasive. I'm telling you, they can persuade you to sell your grandmother. I'm telling you, they can sell sand in the desert.
See, has anybody on this program said to you as a guest, saying, "Oh, shut up, we don't want to be told what to do"? Has you ever that kind of... Has anybody been
I will not listen.
bit of advice? Because you're working on the premise that we should all pay heed to these proverbs. It's a very suspect notion.
This is the weather with Spice FM.
It's cloudy in Nairobi at 18, highs of 24 and lows of 15 today. Sunny conditions in Nakuru at 18, highs of 26 and lows of 15. Rain showers in Nyeri at 16, highs of 22 and lows of 14. And we're looking at mostly cloudy conditions in Eldoret, going to highs of 24 and lows of 13. Partly sunny conditions in Kisumu at 24, highs of 28 and lows of 20. While in Malindi, light rain at 29, highs of 30 and lows of 25. Kakamega is sunny at 24, highs of 29 and lows of 15. While in Mombasa, it continues to rain at 28, highs of 30 and lows of 24. In Kampala, it's raining at 21, highs of 26. We will see mostly sunny conditions at 27 in Dar es Salaam, highs of 30 and lows of 22. Joburg is sunny at 17, highs of 24 and lows of 14, while Lagos is raining at 25, highs of 30 and lows of 24. Mostly cloudy conditions in Kinshasa at 24. We'll see highs of 31 and lows of 23. Beijing is sunny, highs of 20 and lows of 4. And in Paris, mostly cloudy at 11, highs of 15 and lows of 3. London, partly cloudy conditions at 10, highs of 12 and lows of 7. And we'll round things out in New York at 18 degrees. It's clear coming into Thursday with highs of 23 and lows of 16.
Spice up your life.
All right, soon be out of traffic hour, but it still continues in some parts. That Uhuru Highway stretch still continues. And going into the city, we're looking at Aerodrome still thick and heavy. And looking a little bit better on Langata Road, but then it's going to pile up for some time still going towards the roundabout at the Timor Junction. All right, where else are we looking at it? On the Thika Superhighway still continues as it does on Kiambu Road. Most of the other parts of the city are starting to slow down a little bit in terms of traffic, but we'll just keep an eye on things for now. We're getting out of the morning traffic, a little bit of reprieve in those mid-morning hours, and then it'll definitely go into some more craziness later. Shall we keep an eye on things? Help us out to do so on SpiceFMKE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Spice FM, Nakuru. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice.
3 minutes to 10. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It continues. So the president announced a raft of measures yesterday, some 13 key interventions in various sectors of the economy. In the agriculture sector, tea, coffee, sugar, livestock. He also announced some interventions in healthcare, some 3.2 billion shillings to construct 50 new level 3 hospitals, 8 billion shillings to construct 10,000 new classrooms, 10 billion shillings for Kazi Mtaani, among others. The question we're asking is, do you think these 13 recovery interventions will be implemented? Edwin Ashira is on the line on 0719-012-600. Good morning, Edwin.
Good morning, Eric, Ndu, and City.
Good morning.
Morning, sir.
I'm still in Kirinyaga County. Me and the cows are listening to the station.
Yes. Karibu.
Asante sana. Now, I'll go straight to the point. Now, the 8 billion is available. And it is available this way. I'm an accountant by profession, and we know that the simplest accounting in any institution is the government one. Because, like now, if you are employed at SpiceFM, like the Standard Group, if you're the chief accountant, you present to the bosses the cash available, the debts, what needs to be paid and what needs to be ordered and whatever. Then you ask where you're going to get that money from. But with the government, it's just a matter of, is this a priority from the head of state? Yes, it is. 8 billion. So what you do, you can build the classrooms, yes, but don't pay them. It's a king as a debt. Someone else was supposed to be paid somewhere, just put on hold this one. Let's prioritize what the head of state said. So we are just going to build up on the debt that we already have.
So when you say the money is available, then how is it available?
It is available because it will be borrowed.
Oh,
either by who are supposed to be paid.
Yep.
Or maybe simply stopping another project and deferring it to the other year.
And financing this one.
Yes, of course. That's how the government works. Simple accounting.
Actually,
Just
what
borrow.
the president asked the National Treasury to have a conversation with Parliament to facilitate this construction of the classrooms. Take a supplementary budget to Parliament.
Yes.
Parliament do. It's the same thing.
Yes.
We have more than 7 trillion in debt. Just add 8 billion is insignificant. It's simple accounting. We like those guys who work in the government.
So the bottom line then, Edwin.
Yes.
Do you think classrooms are going to be built, 50 new health facilities are going to be built?
With the will, they will. But ask me if it's going to be paid, just add some more debt.
Okay. They'll be built, but the people who build them will not be paid.
Or they might be paid, and someone else who was already supposed to be paid will not be paid.
Okay. Thank you, Edwin.
Accounting is the simplest in this world.
Thank you, Edwin.
Have a nice day.
You too.
Thank you.
Karanja in Naivasha, good morning.
Good morning, City Du and Eric.
Good
Morning, Mr. Karanja.
Yes, now, I think this is the scam of more dilapidated project that we are going to see sometimes to come. Another thing, this is another avenue for the campaign money. Because most of the members of parliament, even the senators, they know they are not going to come back. So how can you trust somebody and give money, somebody who knows his track record, and he's not going to be in parliament, it comes the next year, 2022. I think this is a scam to see more dilapidated projects like the ones we used to have sometimes during the Moi regime. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Karanja. 0719-012-600. What do you think? All these 13 measures that the president announced yesterday, which of them is likely to be implemented, if at all? Do you think they will be implemented? Going by what Edwin is saying, I mean, you will see movement because, I mean, now there's There's some justification. Number one, it's a presidential directive. Number two, it's a priority by the head of government. And number three, which for me is the most crucial one, this is post-COVID economic recovery. Even the World Bank cannot question that. So we are getting some money from the World Bank for post-COVID economic recovery. Now, surely, if the money is going to build 50 new health facilities, if it's going to build schools, if it's going to support the youth in a project that has some success in phase 1 and phase 2, how can you argue about phase 3?
I don't even think it's about an interrogation of the projects or looking at or interrogating the authenticity of some of these things. Like say, okay, so why did you go ahead and do this? We say, hold on a minute. We suffered because of COVID and we're doing 1, 2, 3 to be able to come back from it, right? I don't even think that's the issue. It is the interrogation of whether these things will actually happen. And look, how have you been able to prescribe what you've just said now? Because this has been habitual. That you see, okay, presidential directive, or you see that there will be budget making, you can already guess what's going to happen. Why? Because it has happened before. It's historical behavior. If you can figure it out, and the next person can figure it out, and the next person has figured it has happened before. So my own is that why come again and say, and this is how people under you, as the executive, behave. You know that this is what is likely to happen. You have seen it before. It is the practice. It has been accepted. It doesn't work. Why would you then come and do it all over again? Why? And the people for whom you're prescribing these things essentially would be happy to say, oh yes, good. Our children, better facilities for school. Our health, we will be taken care of. Farmers in tea, coffee, sugar will get some kind of reprieve. Better facilities, etc., giving them some kind of false hope. Why would you do that over and over and over again? I find fault with this because it cannot be. I don't even know if fair is the right word to use. But why do it again when you've done it before and you've seen the results? It's not the first time he's given a presidential directive. Every single directive that he's given has been adhered to.
No, that is why I said he is not to blame. Because when you look at the functions of a president, the way I understand it, I may be completely confused about this matter, but let me speak in my confusion. He doesn't make statements before consulting with people who are in charge of the various ministries or the functions that we have within government.
We would assume.
Oh, no. That conversation takes place. There's no question about it. The president doesn't wake up and just decides to make a speech. He doesn't even write his own speech, for heaven's sake.
Information comes from the ministries.
Yes.
Going all the way to the speechwriter's office, and then
it's discussed. Yes, it's discussed. And part of the discussion, I believe, is what can we actually do? This. Now, are you telling me that in this discussion, there's this discussion of, okay, so what fairy tale can we tell our people this time around?
Yes.
Because we are saying...
Yes.
What can we do to silence the uproar? What can we do to make it seem as though we're working? Absolutely.
Are we telling you? Yes.
I think that conversation happens.
And I am saying I don't think so. This is why I said I may be a bit confused. But those of you who aren't as confused as I am will, of course, correct me and tell me and steer me back into the straight and narrow. Okay?
Into reality.
Because if I'm going to apportion blame, and I'm not going to, because I consider apportion blame a complete waste of time. I'd rather look at this thing and realistically say, the problem lies in you have people who have been appointed and who have been chosen to carry out certain functions within this government. Now, when they don't carry out those functions, you want to say that the solution is to look at it from the point of view of whom do you apportion blame to? No, I'm saying, if you are going to have that discussion about blame, then ask yourself, what blame does in solving the problems we have. I am trying to look at it from this point of view. Please, bear with me. Okay? I'm trying to say that we have a problem that requires a solution.
Right.
These pronouncements are supposed to be an indication of the solution that the government, not the president, the government is trying to bring about. Now, the history that we have tells us that these things never really come to pass as they are prescribed. So should the president stop prescribing them?
Yes.
Why?
Because they've not worked before. Why would you do the same? We just had Justice here who told us, what did he say? We've been applying solutions for things that don't work.
Fake hope.
Don't give people hope where you know things are not going to happen. Don't do it, man.
Let's all pause then and hear Enoch. Okay. Enoch in Kiambu.
Eric,
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning to you.
How are you?
Fine, thanks. How are you?
How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm fine, thank you.
Mwalimu.
Kaka hujambo, habari za leo?
Sijambo.
Asante.
Now, I think the president has put the cart before the horse. The thing is, his pronouncement is not guided by law. For instance, you can talk about the CRB. How is he going to implement that? I've given you money, Eric.
Yep.
And you have failed to pay me.
Yeah.
And the only remedy which I have is to take you to CRB so that you might not go getting money from people and not paying them. And then now here is a directive. Myself as a person who has given you money, how am I going to be either compensated from the laws I'm making through this period he has given?
Remember last year
For me, it's not applicable.
Remember last year there was the same moratorium? A similar moratorium. Yes, a similar moratorium. It did, Mwalimu Enoch. The CRBs were then, people were not being reported to the CRB.
There are quite a number of people whom I know who have been reported to CRB.
Okay.
Serious. Yeah.
So you're saying it's outside the law?
There's no way he can... Sorry?
You're saying
yes,
it's outside the law?
A president governs using the law, not through directives. The Constitution is very clear. You remember when Kibaki came to power, he said, now the directives, roadside directives are going to cease. And the Constitution also came and, in fact, it tells you for you to act from any directive, it must be written. And for President to write, he must be guided by a framework.
So this is
Does he have a framework to give those?
This is what the president said. He said, in order to give the micro, small and medium enterprises reprieve, I order the National Treasury, in consultation with all stakeholders, to secure the following additional measures to provide space to the recovery of MSMEs. So he's saying, National Treasury, you have some powers. Stakeholders, sit down. CBK, sit down. The CRBs, sit down and come up with the modalities. Now, actualize it. Use the relevant...
How long is it going to take?
Use the relevant...
Does he has control of the timeline? He doesn't have. He honestly cannot implement that. Yeah.
Okay.
And most of the things he said, this is actually this campaign. I can call them tools he's using to campaign for the next election. I don't think whether it's meant for benefit of we the people.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, Enoch. Thank you very much for calling.
Good day.
Good day to you. 0719-012-600. So we paused to listen to Enoch. We're back to you.
I like what Enoch has said. Because, you see, where Enoch and I differ, Enoch's conclusion is that you can't really blame the president because he may say this, but it can't be done. And I'm saying this, it's not that it can't be done. It is that the functions of government as we expect and as we anticipate it to work doesn't quite work that way. Because people are determined that they must subvert the very thing. You announce, and Eric, you got it right. When you announce that there's money, oh yes, mechanisms to make sure that the money is going to be available will be there.
See, now that's what people were doing when you saw those consultative meetings.
Which ones?
Those ones that you say consultative meetings take place before these things
Before
are
rolling
announced,
out.
right? By the time that's happening, the wheels in people's minds are already turning. All right, here we go.
So where do you
this
blame
is
the
what
president?
can be. Because he keeps making
me
the
tell you.
announcement knowing very well that these things will happen.
In my thinking, CT,
Yes.
the theft is not going to happen after the president made the pronouncements.
No.
Okay? These pronouncements are being made with full realization, understanding of everything.
that the theft happens.
This is what we...
So you're saying that they're setting in motion a process of theft.
Yes.
You're guaranteeing that
What-
these
what do we
funds will
want?
be stolen.
So you're saying that with the announcement, the president is now guaranteeing and he's complicit in the theft.
It's
Come on, CT. You
when-
know that
when
your
we
people
say
are
10
involved
billion
in this.
shillings is going to go to Kazim
Then you still
Tani.
give them the responsibility to expend this.
So he should sack everybody in government.
No, he should stop just approving
Telling
these
people
things.
that these things will happen.
But then what else is he supposed to do? Because these things are needed. What else is he supposed to do?
What is needed? Money for campaigns is needed.
No. Money for Kazi Mtaani is needed. All these things that he's talking about, you cannot say they're not needed. So what is he supposed to do? That's what I'm really asking. What is he supposed to do?
No, that's a hard question.
Yes.
Because he's supposed to just do his job.
Yes, and he's doing it.
No.
Beyond saying, guys, let's do these things.
The president is not a sayer. The president is the head of the executive. Execute.
President is not the Minister for Finance.
He is the boss of the Minister for Finance.
Neither is he
He's the boss's boss.
He is the boss of the Minister for Finance. Okay?
Okay.
So if, for example, we are saying that money is... What program do we want to roll out? We want to see extra desks taken to schools across the country.
You know that desk thing.
And the president goes ahead, even inspects.
Went himself and
to
sat
see,
in one.
desks are being done, blah, 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 blah. Report. Do we have the desks? Have all the people who made these desks
been paid?
We have closed that financial year. Are we rolling over a debt of money that we had already earmarked in a financial year's budget into a new year? Why? Now, if you sit back and you ask those questions, you can clearly see that, yes.
There's a gap here.
If all you're looking at is those reports from the counties that tell us, we have increased the number of ICU beds from 180 to 600, and yet you just have a small spike. And Minister Muthui Kagwe is out here saying, today if you fall sick, my fellow Kenyans, you will not get a hospital bed. How do you correlate? How do you relate those two?
I relate them fairly.
If you have read the report that says we have actually increased our capacity, and then you're seeing that in some certain counties, we sat here with Eden Duale, the MP for Garissa Town, right? What was he telling us? In Garissa, full hospital, you will not get an ICU facility right now because you have a spike of COVID-19. Because we built facilities and called them ICU and wrote out there ICU. There's no nurse, there's no equipment, we don't have oxygen. All those things are not working. And you're still here saying, we increased our bed capacity in ICUs from 186 to 600. What are you talking about?
You just put beds in there, man.
The president has access to a lot of information. All these things that we say, by the way, CT, the president has access to all this information.
He knows them.
He knows that this are
So the
not...
thing is, how do you have this collective data and information, and then you still make a decision based on this information to go and you have, or at least if you've not received the reports of people that you're supposed to have
he
paid.
should stop
for desks that were built last year, supposedly, and not finished, and we still have a debt. Then you say, okay, we have a debt, but you know what? Let's release more money to build classrooms. The same individuals that you've given this authority to do it before and didn't get it right.
Let me say I hear you say.
Is that not a lapse in judgment?
That all these people, for instance, those who are in the Ministry of Education who didn't build those desks should be sacked. And all the people who didn't put up the ICU that were required, essentially, you're saying we should have seen some heads rolling, isn't it? And then you bring in new heads. Do you think the circumstances would have changed?
It's not about heads rolling. It's just about the job being done. That's it. Revise that speech. Receive the speech and see we have increased. No. We don't have 600 ICU beds. How many functional ICU beds do we have? Change that and say we have increased from 180 to 200. And we have a potential, because we've built facilities, we have a potential of equipping and getting people to work in another 400. That is realistic. Because the president knows the truth. When he's saying 600, he knows it's not 600. When he says we're going to build 10,000 new classrooms, he knows.
10,000 classrooms will not be built.
So,
just as much as you know it today, he knows it too. He knows it too.
I prefer to come from the school of thought that doesn't focus on the 10,000.
3.
I focus on, no, 3. No,
1,000.
Nani, thank you very much.
Okay. Whatever the case may be, that the numbers that you're giving to people here, when you're infusing some kind of hope into the very fiber of their being, and you know very well that it will not happen, why do it?
Let me ask the question. So what do you want him to do?
Say something more realistic that you know can actually be done.
And you think this can be done? I am actually saying this can be done.
We have said many times before. Every time the
that
president
will
speaks
be
to
done.
us, the president should one day, at least the final day that he speaks to us as president, come out and tell us the truth.
The truth.
Let that
You
entire
deal with
1
it as
hour
you will deal with
speech
it.
be the truth. Here is the truth, my fellow Kenyans. We wanted,
We didn't.
we didn't. And these are the reasons why we couldn't.
We thought we would, we were not able to.
And your next president should not tell you this, because let me tell you, Maina, ukondani, this is how things
Who
happen.
we are working with, how we are working. This is what it is. Now you deal with that information as you see best.
Yes. City, anyway, you tell us this Digo proverb so that we can start Friday.
All right. Zogolo kuika sio dawa ya kucha. The cock crowing doesn't cause the break of dawn.
And what does that mean?
It means the president, being a politician, will make promises because it is important to make promises to your people with the hope that these things might actually get done this time around. If they don't get done, that is a completely different conversation.
Okay. There's the truth and there's the reality. Truth and reality are not necessarily the same.
Eric, you really clever person.
Truth and facts are not.
Reality. This is the
Are
truth.
not synonymous.
The whole truth and nothing but the truth. It may not be real.
No.
So COP26 is taking place next month, and the conversation will be taking place on SpiceFM, starting with this Saturday. Olivia Otieno, O Direct, will be having conversations with several organizations talking about climate change, climate action, what needs to take place, what needs to be done by various institutions, by individuals. What can we do? What do we need to understand? What should we expect world leaders to talk about when they meet to discuss climate and climate change? What should we expect our own private sector to do to make sure that we are living in a safe world? These are conversations that are going to be taking place this Saturday, O Direct. It starts at 10 a.m. and ends at what time, Ndu?
2 p.m.
Yes, 10 to 2 on Saturdays. Have a lovely day, folks. It's now 10 o'clock.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning, this is the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga. Learning operations have been disrupted at Taveta University after all staff, including lecturers and non-teaching staff, took to the streets. The lecturers had threatened to go on strike, demanding implementation of their CBA. The lecturers say the university ignored a court order to increase their pay. Police are investigating activist Boniface Mwangi's claim that his house was bombed